23.7, 24. I think the highest that's going right now is 24, but we might be getting into another one of those lulls. What does 24 translate into?
Well, it's about 27 or 28, but I can tell by looking at you there, the wind is actually blowing faster than that. But again, because what happens is it comes in and hits the dune there and then kind of goes up and swirls around. So the official way to measure wind, when we say the wind is blowing at 100 miles an hour, because look at the trees down there. See, they're at the more traditional level of measuring the wind where the ground effect doesn't create a lot of swirling of the wind to make it impossible to get an accurate measurement. But the official way to measure wind is actually at 33 feet above the ground, because you're trying to figure out how hard the wind is blowing, not actually what the ground is doing and making the wind all swirl and roll and do all the kinds of things that make gusts.
Yeah, we're not having any debris flying through the air at this point. We're just having bits of sand, and that is very painful on the back of your head. I think it's going to take like 3 or 4 showers to get the sand out of my scalp. But at what point can the folks here in Juno Beach and north of Juno Beach, and if you're not familiar with the area, Juno Beach is actually north of Palm Beach, and then north of there, at what point can they expect to have massive debris flying around?
Well, we're on real-time Doppler 4. I mean, it is really an inch off your shore, or on the screen here. Here's Jupiter, here's Juno Beach, and folks watching at home can see that this yellow in the radar is right offshore, and it's just...
Las imágenes que tenemos aquí en el sur de la Florida, observen la bahía de Biscayne, el viento ya está incrementando en intensidad, las condiciones tranquilas sobre esta zona, pero un poco más hacia el norte ya tienen algo feo que se está aproximando. Vamos a conectar con nuestra computadora para que puedan apreciar ese ojo de circulación que continúa aproximándose lentamente hacia el centro de la Florida. Aquí ese ojo que está sobre la isla de Grand Bahama, condiciones tranquilas sobre esa zona, pero estamos observando esta banda de alimentación que continúa cobrando fuerza sobre el sector y se está moviendo hacia el sur de la Florida y está cobrando intensidad, es decir, los vientos están cobrando fuerza. Observen esta gráfica, este color oscuro indica que en esta zona se están reportando vientos ya sobrepasando las 90 millas por hora y eso se espera que ingrese sobre el condado de Palm Beach durante la próxima media hora, azotando el sector, el viento fuerte, lluvias torrenciales. Precisamente a las 5 de la mañana en el condado de Palm Beach, en el sector de Riviera Beach, se reportó una ráfaga de 75 millas por hora. A las 7 de la mañana en Jupiter, 81 millas por hora. Y precisamente hace unos 5 minutos se reportaron 91 millas por hora, otra vez en el sector de Jupiter, y eso va a empeorar durante los próximos 15, 20 minutos, posiblemente en los próximos 30 minutos. Conectamos ahora con el radar Doppler 51 primero y preciso para que puedan observar la actividad. Aquí tenemos esa primera banda de alimentación que se desplazó sobre el sector más temprano durante la madrugada. Actualmente continúa la lluvia intensa hacia el interior del condado de Palm Beach, a punto de azotar el sector del lago Okeechobee. La US 98 seca, pero durante la mañana y la noche impacto directo de precipitación fuerte. Y miren ya lo que se está aproximando es esa banda de alimentación próxima a la pared del ojo del huracán, que solamente se encuentra a unas 115 millas hacia el este. Ya Júpiter reportó una ráfaga de 91 millas por hora y es precisamente esa intensidad la que estará azotando el sector durante los próximos minutos. Precipitación intensa por toda la costa, West Palm Beach también este sector con lluvia, la I-95 con precipitación. Esto estará entrando dentro de poco sobre la zona.
And look at this, West Palm Beach now a gust of 52 miles per hour, so sustained 41, gust of 52 as the center gets closer, and over 2 inches of rain in West Palm Beach already. All of this will be filling in. We'll have tremendous rainfall totals in parts of central and south Florida as the system slowly makes its way onshore. But think about this, not until late tonight and during the morning hours of Sunday, a prolonged period of tropical storm to hurricane gust force winds.
Just for any word on what's been happening in their immediate vicinity.
And as Bill and Judy and our crews out there continue to have the power, they can continue to see where Francis is sitting as we speak moment by moment over them, and that stubborn storm is storm is still stalled out over them. You can see the hurricane force winds still whipping around where they are in Marsh Harbor. So hopefully those pictures are going to be able to help him as well, and he can venture out.
Tell me a hurricane was coming, I really wouldn't know. Take a look out now. When the wind's coming, the waves are probably about, I would say, 8 to 10 feet. But it's really windy. I mean, in South Florida, it's kind of like any other rainstorm right now. If you could see behind me, Leon, if you can zoom in, there's a lighthouse back there. And we were told that was actually put up in 1904. And Brian could actually probably talk a little bit more about this. But in 1926, a major hurricane flew through here. And the only thing that withstood that hurricane, we are told, is that lighthouse. So I feel a little bit safe being near that. But right here, right now, not much. We see a few of the branches on the trees flying. You see a surfboard here.
En los 60 se estudió la posibilidad de desplazar una especie de polvo en la atmósfera para disipar la intensidad de estos huracanes. Eso se realizó con 6 ciclones. 3 incrementaron en potencia y en intensidad y 3 perdieron algo de su furia. Desde entonces más nunca se ha realizado otra prueba con tratar de manipular la potencia, la intensidad o tratar de destruir los ciclones. Así que en la década de los 50 y los 60 se trataron de hacer estudios, le desplazaron un pequeño polvo a la atmósfera alrededor del huracán para ver si se podía disipar. Lo que querían era provocar lluvia, agregarle un polvo para que existiera más condensación, tratar de que ellos soltaran toda su intensidad debido a la lluvia. Sin embargo, de los 6 huracanes, 3 se incrementaron en intensidad después que desplazaron ese polvo y 3 perdieron algo de su furia, y desde entonces no se ha tratado de manipular.
The feeder bands are moving southward, and we're going to put this in motion now and give you the future. First of all, we'll zoom in and see that we are looking at now West Palm Beach, the heavy feeder band out in the Atlantic, about to get into Boca Raton and then eventually down into Deerfield Beach. So we're going to be watching this very carefully. This is the western area of the circulation of Francis. This is a future scan exclusive to Channel 7. We take the existing radar, take it out 1 hour, and look. In fact, if you notice, very far to the south, this feeder band goes down into Broward County and even possibly into Miami-Dade County in the next hour and a half or more. And this area of yellow and gold out to sea, this is surrounding the circulation center itself, and we are looking at everything drifting off to the west and northwest. So this in motion again. This is the area that we're watching. This is the western end of the circulation center. No eye with the storm now, just a broad circulation center, but everything moving now west or west-northwest and everything pinwheeling down. And over the next several hours, it's going to be a really dangerous place to be in Palm Beach County and eventually Broward and even sections of especially north or northeast Miami-Dade County. Now here's Doppler radar, and we'll see from the other source, we'll see what's happening here in the wider view. Again, the circulation center, the feeder bands marching west and southwest. Very good clip here. And we're going to be looking at this continuing now again for several hours, and we'll zoom in and get a closer look at the circulation center. This is very important. Notice how now the convection is wrapping all around the center. This is looking like it's getting better organized as it heads toward the, well, let's see where it's moving. To me, it looks like more of a westerly direction or a slow westward motion than a west-northwest motion. So we'll see, because this makes all the difference in the world as to exactly what county the circulation center ends up in. If it ends up in Palm Beach County, then Broward and even northeast Miami-Dade get into the really high core winds. If it moves into Martin County, then it's Palm Beach and northern Broward. So any shift 50 miles either way of this circulation center is going to make all the difference in the world as far as exactly who gets the strongest winds. The surf is really coming up now, and this is just the tiny feeder bands.
Fuera para menos, tenemos ahora la tormenta tropical Iván. Los últimos datos indican de que a largo plazo, durante los próximos 5 días, continuará su movimiento hacia el oeste-noroeste y ya estará próximo a las Antillas Menores. Ese es el resumen completo. Continúa el mal tiempo sobre Broward y Palm Beach y se van a empeorar las condiciones para el condado de Miami-Dade.
Of Florida. Now, the eye is rather large and very expansive. The hurricane is going to continue to come on shore, and the most dangerous winds are on the northern side of the eye of the hurricane, from Palm Beach County, Fort Pierce, all the way up toward Cape Canaveral. These yellow bands that you see here, those are by far the highest winds. That's where we're getting the Category 2 force winds of 105 miles per hour. And as you can see, the hurricane continues to lash the east central coast of Florida, it's going to be a very, very significant situation by the time all is said and done across the northern part of the state. Let's switch over now to First Alert Doppler radar and see exactly what are the rain bands that are affecting us here across the state of Florida. This is one of the rain bands coming on shore between Orlando and Melbourne, and what you're seeing right here, this is the Doppler radar indicating that there's probably a tornado in association with that rain band. This is the turnpike right here running north and south. So right along the turnpike just south of Kissimmee, there's already some evidence there that we're starting to see tornado activity that's starting to spin up on the right side of the eye wall of the hurricane. I think there's a much better likelihood of seeing tornadoes on the right side versus the left side, and we are on the left side. The right side of the hurricane is going to be affecting portions of Palm Beach County, Martin, St. Lucie County. The eye is very large and very expansive, but here in South Florida, I don't think we're going to completely escape the possibility of hurricane force winds across Broward County. The winds have been gusting already here at South Florida as high as 45 to 50 miles per hour. It wouldn't take much for one of these rain bands to produce some wind gusts of 60 miles per hour, possibly 70, 75 miles per hour. So South Florida needs to stay just kind of put where we're at right now. This is a potentially dangerous situation. Coming into work this morning, there were a lot of very large palm fronds, those royal palm fronds coming down off of the trees. Some of those palm fronds can weigh in excess of 40 to 50 pounds, and if you're driving your car and all of a sudden are hit by a royal tree palm frond, that can cause significant damage. It could cause you to have an accident. So it's just not worth it at this point, and we're having numerous power outages. But the eye of this hurricane is very large. It is very expansive. It measures approximately 50 to 60 miles across, and that call that we had from Mr. Neal was right here in Freeport on Grand Bahama Island. They have been experiencing winds out of the north, and now as the eye of the hurricane is passing off toward the west, they're getting the opposite winds coming in out of the south. So they're being hit by both ends from the north last night throughout much of the night, and now the winds spiraling around are hitting them out of the south. And I just want to quickly take a look at our own First Alert Doppler radar and see where these rain bands are that are affecting Broward County, Miami-Dade County, and across the Keys. We do have one rain band that's moving through Miami right now, up here toward Miami Lakes, down toward Miccosukee, and just north of Homestead. With that, very easily tropical storm force winds are possible. Then we have another rain band. While all is relatively quiet, or at least, of course, it's breezy in Broward County, but once this rain band here spirals onshore, then we're going to be seeing some very strong gusty winds associated with that rain band affecting portions of Broward County. The winds are going to be out of the northwest to the west. That is at least an offshore wind. I'd much rather have an offshore wind than an onshore wind. If you were Palm Beach County points north, you would be encountering onshore winds. But there is the eye of that hurricane. Let's go to our neighborhood WeatherNet site real quickly, and I want to show you Palm Beach International Airport showing us gusts to 61 miles per hour.
This is the hurricane's center of rotation up here. It's kind of jogged to the north a little bit, but that is the eye wall trying to form that the Hurricane Center was reporting. Hurricane hunters said the eye is open to the south and the southwest, southeast to southwest. So in any case, that's the eye right in there, so to speak. That's the fragment of an eye wall. So this whole huge rotation here is a little bit misleading, but there you can see it kind of trying to rotate around there. Now, what's happening down here, the winds are still blowing good in there, and it's it's just not a well-developed hurricane. But as this continues off in this direction or maybe up in there, looks like it's going to be around Juno Beach or Hope Sound or somewhere in there, that the 30-mile or almost 35-mile wide eye, so-called, is going to come ashore. But the whole thing is going to kind of come ashore in a big piece of the coastline, and I mean, essentially, it's happening right now.
Brian, it looks like it's a what? About
strengthen?
Yeah, I think that window is open right now. Will be for the next 12 hours or so. We have seen the pressure not change much, but certainly the appearance on radar and satellite pictures is more impressive than it was 12 hours ago.
Now, we're talking about storm surge here. Our reporter down at Deerfield Beach, because of that strong northeast swell, because the storm was out there for so long, has high water, but we expect this to be considerably higher, say from the Palm Beaches north. How high are you predicting now based on what you're thinking how the hurricane's going to come ashore?
I still think there'll probably be 4 to 6 feet of storm surge near into the north of where the center comes ashore. So if we switch to the radar view, it makes it a little easier to see that. But basically, from north of Palm Beach northward will be the highest surge, where the strong bands come ashore. And of course, on top of that, you have some rather large waves too.
Right, that part of the coast is prone to large waves anyway because of the way the sea bottom comes up. And actually, I guess the storm surge is limited there, right? Because the shape of the bottom of the ocean there.
That's right. Where you get the largest surge, the waves don't tend to be as high. In this case, 4 to 6 feet of surge doesn't sound like much, but that's just the peculiarity to this part of the coast. But they get bigger waves up in the Palm Beach area northward.
Yeah, I used to surf up in Melbourne Beach, and I remember Hurricane Betsy, waves up near 20 feet up there. So, and the hurricane never did come ashore, so it can really happen. Let's talk about, I was talking about the bottom end of the storm because it's going to be a close call for Miami-Dade County, isn't it? Although Broward County looks like it's definitely going to get part of that band.
Yeah, it's very difficult to pinpoint which county is going to get which now. Obviously, it gets worse as you go north from your viewing area. We already have had Boynton Beach report a wind gust of 70 miles per hour, and we'll see more of that as these bands come through. As you mentioned before, not quite a strong wind down in Miami-Dade County.
Now we're on a variety of television stations here, including TVX 34 up in the Palm Beach market that serves the folks over in Lake Okeechobee, and they've been concerned, obviously, based on history up there, although things are quite a bit different now than they were in 1928. What's the latest thinking in terms of the lake and how the wind is going to affect the water in the lake, especially on the east side?
Yeah, it looks like most of the winds are going to be coming out of the northwest and in the north and northeast, and that's going to drive the water to the south of the lake. We could see a storm surge as high as 5 feet, mainly on the southern part of the lake.
But that's where the big levee is, isn't it? From after the 1928 storm. That's what happened in 1928, but there wasn't the kind of levee we have there now.
Right, we're in better shape now, but still that's a considerable storm surge there.
Do you know if are they evacuating anyone away from the south side of the lake? Have you heard?
Yeah, I'm not sure, Brian.
All right, well, we're going to have to check into that because I know we have folks watching in Okeechobee County. They've been contacting us. In terms of wind speeds, we've seen 80, 90. I mean, this is what we're going to expect all the way up and down the coast, I guess, right? Except for right near the center, maybe a little more?
Yeah, that's right. Down here in Miami-Dade County, it won't be quite that strong, of course, and right. Broward will be a little bit more, but the strongest of the winds will be probably from Palm Beach County on northward. Those gusts to 80, 90, maybe 100 miles per hour plus, on and off now for the next 12 hours, it would appear.
All right, in the open space there that's over Grand Bahama now, have we heard from Grand Bahama lately about the winds in that open area?
We haven't heard any reports from the public, but we do have observations there, and they're still reporting 45-knot, 50-mile-an-hour sustained winds out of the northwest, so that would suggest that the center is still very close to them.
Right, right. All right, Ed Rappaport, thanks very much.
Here with the camera, because sooner or later that's going to come loose. What a mess.
All right, things starts to move in, though. We're talking about a huge trail behind it. So this is just a very small chunk of what's ahead, correct?
Yeah, Don No obviously waiting in the wings to come in with the White and Christie, and he'll have obviously more on this as the radar data continues to come in as the storm progresses further off towards the west. But what Mark was referring to is the fact that the western side of the storm that we're seeing push through West Palm now into the central parts of Florida is actually the weak side of the storm. It's the side of the storm that got dry air pulled into the system. It's the side that had the shear in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and it's the left side of the storm. What we're going to see happen is as this eye continues to push off to the west-northwest, we're going to see rain wrap completely around this eye, and it's going to extend a lot further back off towards the east than it does obviously to the west because the storm a lot healthier on the backside due to the lack of shear. And you can see simply off to the north up to Fort Pierce and Melbourne. Notice the solid greens into the deep greens. That is heavy rain showers, and they're in even some yellows in some of these bands closer to the eye of this hurricane. So further to the north, obviously the flooding concerns are greater. The storm surge concerns are greater as the forward motion of the storm only 5 miles per hour. But you get the winds working with the ocean. The storm surge obviously greater because the wind is pushing across the water onto the land, whereas Broward, Miami-Dade County, and the southern parts of Palm Beach County, we're getting our winds out of the west-northwest west, and that's coming with the land, pushing back over the water. So storm surge not going to be a big concern for
the box for you. Okay, let's go full with graphic 2. There we go. This right here is the best shot you're going to have of the eye of the storm. A couple things to note. Let's stay on this for a little while. Right here is the developing eye of the storm. Right now it's the center of circulation. An eye really isn't correct to say. However, if you look right inside there, this is the disturbing factor. We're beginning to see the development perhaps of an eye within the center of circulation. So if that's the case, it's a condition that would be frightening in that the storm could be intensifying again. Now, we didn't think it would do that. However, if it spends a long time over the Gulf Stream, remember the Gulf Stream waters flow like this, so you're continually advecting fresh, warm water underneath the storm, and that certainly is going to help the storm. It certainly won't hinder it. It'll help the storm perhaps intensify a little bit. Now, if we'll continue to watch this throughout the afternoon, right now the worst of the weather, and really this is considered to be the hurricane, right about through there, and it kind of goes more to the north than it does to the south. So the worst of the weather is in that band and just beginning to move on shore. Palm Beach County getting now sustained winds of 60 miles per hour, gusting higher. Hurricane force winds also have been noted in gusts from Palm Beach County northward to about Fort Pierce, up to 100 miles per hour, and that was a couple of hours ago. So this storm is definitely a developing system. It is apparently moving in a direction that's sort of like that at the moment, but the forecast track again takes the center of circulation sort of in a direction like this. But remember, with the winds down there, the winds up here, that's the worst part of the storm. That's going to more or less move across the state like that. So what that does to us in Broward County and Miami-Dade County puts Broward County with very, very strong tropical storm force winds with hurricane force gusts. We were warning you of that the last couple of days. It looks like that's going to be the case. However, it is the weaker side of the storm, so you've got the winds kind of coming around that way. The stronger side is up here, so far worse weather to the north than it is to the south. Now I'm going to put the thing in motion here just a second. If we zoom in on it, there we go. Now we can see, you can't see the other half of it here because we're using the short range radar, but now you can see the winds kind of coming around. So the worst weather is going to be where these bands come and slam into the coast. So from about Palm Beach County north to about Melbourne, that's really going to be the major impact of the storm because you're moving the storm with the showers as they develop. Down into Broward County, you can see the impact of the storms are kind of moving around that way. So they have a little time to diminish in intensity. Miami-Dade County, much less of a problem. As you can see right now, the weather is pretty decent over much of Miami-Dade County. But we'll be watching very, very closely and very carefully this more or less continuous band of weather. You can pretty much say that area that I outlined right there, that would be the hurricane. So it's very, very close to northeastern Broward County. It is into most of Palm Beach County now. Definitely into Martin and St. Lucie County, Indian River, Volusia, Brevard County farther up to the north. So that's what we're looking at. Now we can go to graphic 6. I want to show you the visible imagery. If we can go to 6, there we go. All right, now what we're looking at there is the full part of the storm. We only showed you half of it. If we can put the 6 up in the telestrator, then I can give you a little better idea where the eye of the storm is. We can stick it in the telestrator. I can work with it, all right? Until that happens, I can only sort of point to the middle of the circulation there, which if you can look at the last couple of hours, there we go. It is sort of moving in a direction that takes it that way. Notice the color of the clouds here. Very bright, brilliant white in bands up in that direction toward the north. We have one bright white band down to the south, and then it seems to be cut off and very ragged down to the southwest. So most of you watching right now, in fact all of you except the ones in Palm Beach County, I know we do have a few people who do watch us up there, most of us will be experiencing pretty much what we have right now. Tropical storm force winds will be the strongest in Broward County. The farther north you go, of course, the better chance you have of getting some hurricane gusts. But if you're watching in Dade County, Broward County, it is going to be pretty much like you see it outside, give or take the lulls and the bands that come through all day long. So do not go anywhere. I noticed that there were just a few people on the highway from our tower cams. We were looking at our traffic cams. That's a good thing. For the most part, everyone's doing what you're supposed to do. Congratulations to you. Stay inside. stay inside until the system moves far enough away. And I'm afraid that's going to be at least all day today. So bring out the games and just be prepared. But as far as the storm surge is concerned, there really isn't going to be much of an issue for storm surge except from West Palm northward.
Miles east of Palm Beach County and moving towards the west-northwest. There have been some wobbles. We see that all the time. But this bend back to the left we've been talking about for more than a day appears to be occurring. There's also been a big filling in of rainfall now. It's even a wetter system than we had before. And the satellite picture, which I don't have up here right now, suggests that it's a little better organized, but the hurricane hunters reconnaissance aircraft reports don't indicate that it's strengthened much, at least as of yet.
Okay, Ed, Don No here. I'm looking on the radar, and it looks like a very lopsided, elongated center of circulation with perhaps something else trying to form within that center. Do you see something like that?
That's right. You may recall that when this was very intense, we had a very small eye wall, intense inner core that we often see. This is probably the residual of that, that inner eye wall that we had. And here's where most of the heavy weather is. It's actually a little bit better weather inside the eye, of course, and the rough weather is out over here. Strong onshore winds, fortunately north of most of the viewing area.
If that inner eye wall were to intensify or were to form, would that be a signal that the storm would possibly be intensifying?
It would, but that would only really make a difference for the area that gets that little feature as it moves across, and there are only about 6 to 12 hours or so left for it to strengthen. We don't think there'll be much change, probably Category 2 at landfall.
All right, any reports of recent wind gusts along the East Coast that you can pass along?
Nothing in the last hour or so, but we expect that as these bands come ashore, of course, we'll be seeing some stronger wind gusts.
And rain totals?
Still looking at 7 to 12 inches for the area that gets the bulk of the rain, mainly to our north. We're going to have these squalls with occasionally strong winds and heavy rains come through here.
Okay, I know people down here are just one question in their mind: when is this thing going to be over? How would you answer that?
Well, it'll be over for us sooner than it'll be over for the folks up to the north. The conditions will begin to improve tomorrow for us.
Okay, so all day long we can look forward to the kind of weather we have outside now, right?
That's right.
Okay. All right, Ed?
Fort Lauderdale. Now, what we're seeing in here is possibly, just possibly, the beginnings of a contraction in what was a large circulation center that got so disrupted yesterday. If it does get more consolidated and an eye wall tries to form, it's still far enough offshore, and it's enough water here, and certainly over the Gulf Stream, to just get a little bit stronger. Now, the official forecast was for it to get up to 110 miles an hour, which is the borderline 2-3. Now, we'll have to watch this very closely, because if it's only moving at 5, even though part of the circulation center is on land, the heart of it, or the core of it, is over water still. So that's why I just want to show you. You're going to see the picture change from radar. In fact, Ben, if you can put up the radar that we just had up before this picture, and you can see again, this would be the radar depiction of that center that I just showed you. And notice how it's become contracted and a little bit more symmetrical. And there are thunderstorms that wrap around the eye. Now we're seeing them go into the bottom part. This could be a slow process, but it may or may not have enough time. But I just want to keep you apprised that even though it's only 100 or so miles offshore, it still has that little bit of a window of opportunity. And then we have to see just exactly where that center, or if it does become an eye, where that crosses the coastline. Again, like I always say, this quadrant, the right front quadrant, if it's headed toward the west or west-northwest, is the most dangerous. This is the one that houses the tornadoes and the storm surge, because low pressures have counterclockwise flows. So this is going to be very important today to see exactly where that goes. Regardless of where the center goes, if you're not in the right front quadrant, you're going to get the spiraling bands down the coast from Palm Beach into Broward, now even into North.
Is in the middle of a flood zone, and I know, Rod, you were trying to find that guy on that second floor. Did you find him? Did you catch him at all?
No, we did go down to. We did knock out some buildings on the.
It is also about 70 miles from north to south, so it is 70 miles long and about 60 miles across, and the hurricane is just spiraling in a very, very slow east to west-northwest direction. Now, as we focus in, and once they get into this part right here, this part that you see here across the north end of the eye wall, that's north of Abaco Island and Grand Bahama Island, that's still to the east of Fort Pierce. Once they get into this is the eye wall structure that has the most damaging winds and the highest storm surge. That's what's really going to be causing significant problems later tonight as the sun begins to go down. Now, we're getting a little bit of dry air that's moving in across much of the metro area of Broward County. Not much as far as any feeder bands or rain bands there, But down to the south across Miami-Dade County, there is an impressive feeder band that moved through Broward County earlier. It is now moving from the north toward the south, and with this rain band, we can encounter some tropical storm force winds in excess of 40 miles per hour. That rain band right now stretching from Miami Beach northward to Hialeah, just south of Miami Lakes, across Doral into Sweetwater, Kendall Lakes, and across Coral Gables. And so that rain band is going to be moving from the north toward the south, and as it does, that's going to be producing the very strong gusty winds. And the reason it's important, guys, that we're seeing a break like this, when we see a break in the rain bands, granted there is some sustained wind within the actual perimeter of the hurricane, but when we have a break in the rain band, as we're seeing right now across Broward County, I think Hank Tester's live shot was a testament to this, and that is that we see a significant decrease in the wind. The highest winds and the heaviest rain is always going to be associated with the rain bands of the hurricane. So the hurricane's still offshore, but boy, it's going to be coming on shore probably around 10 o'clock or midnight tonight.
Aviso de tormenta tropical para los condados Miami-Dade y Broward. O sea que eso pudiera suceder más tarde esta noche, quizás no ahora en el boletín de las 8, pero posiblemente para el boletín de las 11, tal vez. O cabe la posibilidad que si están en comunicación con las autoridades de los condados del sur de la Florida, tal vez las autoridades le pidan que demoren eso hasta mañana por la mañana. Habrá que ver, pero definitivamente lo peor de este huracán se está moviendo hacia el norte, no está impactando a Miami-Dade y Broward. Nosotros estamos viendo efectos periféricos de como si nos estuviera pasando el centro de una tormenta tropical justo encima de nosotros. Eso es lo que se está viviendo en el condado Miami-Dade y Broward en estos momentos. No estamos viviendo condiciones huracanadas, estamos viviendo condiciones de tormenta tropical.
The entire north side of the central core, the central sort of open spot, although now there are some showers in the open area. Now, the western part of that particular band, that real strong band that has the 100+ mile-an-hour winds in it, is just offshore. I'm going to draw a line on the map here in the Palm Beach County, Martin County line, and here's Jupiter. Jupiter Beach goes right, Jupiter Island goes right like that up into Martin County, and then Juno Beach is just right in the same area there, and then West Palm Beach a little further south. So what's going to happen is this is going to rotate down, but the storm is also going to inch to the left. So eventually this band is going to come into northern Palm Beach County, Martin County, and eventually even points north. Now, we can go close up here with real-time Doppler 4, and let me show you the bottom end of that band is right there, which is just a matter of maybe 10 or 15 miles off of Juno Beach now. Now, there is also a fairly strong band going through West Palm Beach at this point, but the real this is the one, this is the band that the strongest winds in the hurricane have been reported in by the hurricane hunters. Now, just checking on Miami-Dade County, because Broward is mostly clear at the moment, but there's a very strong band moving through Miami-Dade right over Key Biscayne and extends back into the Kendall area, pretty much south of the 836 under a strong band there. Now, looking at the wide view here of the hurricane, we can now clearly see on this wide view that the strongest part is this sort of arc over top of the center that extends well west. So the important thing to notice here is that when the hurricane moves inland, we still have this whole back end to go. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to get these very strong bands this evening. Winds are really going to pick up in the Palm Beaches and just north this evening. And then there's going to be a break for the eye, and then there's going to be this extended period of rain and strong winds after that. That's what's going to happen in Palm Beach County and points north. Now, in terms of Broward and Miami-Dade County, some of these bands, as the storm moves in, they usually kind of unravel. So some of the bands will rotate south later on tonight, but it's going to be much more sporadic through the evening and the overnight. But tomorrow, this tail, this long tail of the hurricane, which actually goes well off the screen, will come in. So I think the weather will actually be much worse tomorrow. Perhaps not as intense when the wind is in the big, strong gusts, because the overall hurricane should be weakening tomorrow. But I think more continuously bad tomorrow as the hurricane slowly moves on off to the west. So the ordeal continues here in Miami-Dade and Broward County, but it is really going to get nasty and dangerous in Palm Beach County and points north here during the evening hours this evening, and then you're going to get the eye. Now, up in Central Florida, up into the Melbourne area, up on the Space Coast, and Vero Beach, they're never going to get a break because of the way the donut works. Here, once you're past the top of the donut, then you just don't get a break, because when it moves in, the weather just keeps on coming. Although strong cell. And one of the things that the computer does is it notes the direction of movement. Now, what Craig has done here is he's sort of estimated that this strong cell is going to move around like this, and so we can actually put this motion indicator on here, and it will figure out what neighborhoods actually are in line, going from Blowing Rocks down through Jupiter and Juno Beach, coming up here within the next half hour. Oh, the pressure is down dramatically, so we may have a significantly strengthening storm here. We'll have to wait for...
This is certainly something we'll have to watch. If it's going to intensify as much as we're forecasting, we'll have to turn our eyes in that direction here in a few days.
All right, that obviously was an interview with Max Mayfield, but not with us, because we could not hear the questions asked, but I think you can infer from the answers pretty much what he was saying, and we've asked the questions so often, I think you could probably guess what they were. Let's take a look at the radar here. We're going to show you where the storm is coming ashore, if we can take a close look at this. This is the center of circulation, offshore yet, but the very, very strong winds are now getting perilously close. And this is the heart and soul of the hurricane. It is beginning to move on shore, and it is starting from about, let's say, Jupiter, and moving northward to Fort Pierce. At least that's where this first band is going to hit. The stronger band, however, is probably going to hit a little bit later, and that would be from that one as it moves ashore in the northern part of St. Lucie County and into Indian River County. But nevertheless, this is where the hurricane force winds will be the strongest as this eye moves ashore, and that's going to take a very prolonged period. So there's going to be beach erosion. There's going to be very heavy damage to structures along the coast. The maximum winds are about 100 miles per hour. So certainly it is not an Andrew, it's not a Charlie, but 100-mile-an-hour sustained wind is enough to do structural damage. It's enough to cause beach erosion, flooding, and the storm surge is expected to be at least 4 or 5 feet, probably a little bit more, maybe more like 8 to 10 feet. The only good thing we have going for us on this coast is this relatively deep water out here, and the storm surge is not quite, doesn't have much time to build up as it does over in the Gulf of Mexico, which is relatively shallow. There you can get a 25-foot storm surge. On our coast, you can pretty much only get about a 15 to 20-foot storm surge, if that's any consolation, and that would be from the worst-case scenario. So my guess is you'd probably be talking about a storm surge anywhere from, say, 6 to maybe 10 feet, and that would be near the center right here and just north of the center. Now, by right here, I don't mean here in South Florida. I mean here on the map, and I'm pointing to about the Martin and St. Lucie County line. Now, let me put this into motion for you. We're going to go out just a little bit. Actually, we're going to go up a little bit, and the radar is digesting. There we go. This is probably where the worst of the weather is right now offshore. That is not in the direct hurricane core, and that's all moving onshore. So it's going to be a pretty nasty night for our neighbors to the north, up around the Cape, and even as far north as Daytona Beach. I know I heard a reporter say that it doesn't look like the worst is going to happen there. Well, but the very, very strong winds will also occur there. Let me come down a little bit here on the radar, and we're looking now at Palm Beach County, and we're going to see this little band here. That's going to come very, very close to the coast and probably move on shore, but it'll be kind of drifting off again by the time it gets to central Palm Beach County. So the northeastern part of Palm Beach County, from West Palm Beach all the way up to Jupiter, will be experiencing hurricane force winds, absolutely, for the next probably hour or so, because this thing is just taking so long to go. So that's where the main impact of the storm is, but Max Mayfield just said there was a report of a roof off in Glades County, which is over near Lake Okeechobee on the other side. So these tropical storm force bands that extend out from the center, and let me go out a little bit on the map to show you. These tropical storm force, that's a little bit too far. The tropical storm force bands extend all the way down now through Miami-Dade County and through Broward County. Not as strong as they were before, but we still have the whole night here to go before we generally can look for better weather in the morning. So as long as the hurricane warning is up, I think we need to adhere to that. One more thing, we had an email from somebody wondering whether church service was going to be held tomorrow. Obviously, churches are not like schools where they all call it off, but my guess is if there's a hurricane warning up, the advice is going to be still.
Real water that you need to really create lightning and thunderstorms.
Oh, I see. Okay, interesting. And also, you know, I was thinking too, we were on the southwest quadrant and on the weaker side, so I was thinking maybe most of the convective activity would have been in the right front quadrant, and you know, but thanks for clearing that up.
Okay.
And Max, is the eye wall getting more pronounced? Is the storm strengthening?
Well, it may be strengthened a little bit. The pressure has come down a little bit, but we don't really see any big change in the eye wall structure. There is still a large diameter eye wall, and we just don't expect to see any significant change. And you know, I think this will come in as a strong Category 2 or borderline Category 2, Category 3.
Max, for the folks who are up in Palm Beach, and then we just have our reporter Rochelo in Juno Beach, explain to them what kind of wind that they would be experiencing with the core.
Oh, I think they're going to get some hurricane force winds here very, very shortly, at least gust or hurricane force winds. The eye wall is just off the northeastern portion of Palm Beach County and about to move into Martin and St. Lucie County here in the next hour or two.
And Max, the area around that western circulation, it looks like it's going to be coming down, obviously in a weakened form, into the rest of Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade, right?
Well, the winds, the strong winds will not spread too far inland, but Bill, don't underdo these rain bands even across the peninsula here, because you know we've got roofs blown off homes,
exactly,
even in the central part of the peninsula.
Yeah, and we're going to be seeing the winds increase before they decrease.
That's right, sure, and the especially in that core that we're talking about, just as it moves on shore in this area right here.
Okay, Max, any other, you said the plane found a lower pressure and the track seems to be on target. Now tomorrow, say the circulation center moves to our west. The other side of the storm is pretty power-packed with a lot of rain and thunderstorms, and we could be in this tomorrow too, correct?
Yeah, I think so, but I think that, once this circulation center gets over land, the winds will, the maximum winds will certainly come down, and I think there's certainly hope here by late tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening that things should be improving.
Okay, as you know, and the storm is still in Florida, so it's still your problem, but less our problem.
All right, yeah, we're talking about another landfall in the Florida Panhandle now with the folks up there.
Full Labor Day weekend. All right, thanks, Max.
You bet, Bill.
Max Mayfield, National Hurricane Center. And if I could just go and show you 7 storm scan here, and Max was talking about, you're looking at Juno Beach there, and they are about to get this part of it. And this part that houses the yellow and the golds, just an incredible amount of hurricane force wind. That is the core, the western edge of the eye wall now. The eye wall seems to be reforming as it gets close to land. Anyway, we'll give you a closer look here so we can see what's going to happen down in our area. And this is already moving down into southeast Palm Beach County. And these other rain bands we've had, make no mistake, they're accompanied by 40 to 50 mile-an-hour winds with higher gusts because the winds are increasing even without the rain squalls. But as this area of the western side of the circulation comes down the coast over the next hour or so, much of Broward County and eventually into Miami-Dade County later on this evening, if it holds together, will be getting into the higher winds along with the squally rain. So
to focus on the points, I guess, in the track, but over the last several days, the tracking was seeming to indicate this, and that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, we talked about the left turn. It was
certainly not in my memory. We've had a storm going this slowly with an eye this wide, and so the hurricane winds from start to finish and then start to finish again from the front to the back side could be over a 12 to 14-hour period. So again, if anybody is listening to us up there, if before your power goes out, if you are in the very, very strong hurricane winds and suddenly the winds go calm here, let's say in the middle of the night, and you wake up tomorrow morning, it looks pretty decent, that's not the time to say, oh, the storm is circulation. The worst winds are just about where I drew that circle. Let me bring you in a little bit closer. We're showing you our radar, Doppler weather radar network. There are 3 of them. Let me zoom right into the heart of the storm. And there you can see what appears to be maybe an eye that is growing a little bit smaller. The original diameter was up here. Now we can see kind of a little area right there. That would be not quite a concentric eye, but it was sort of a double eye wall, so to speak. And sometimes that's an indication that the storm is trying to re-strengthen. It's an indication at least the storm is trying to restructure itself a little bit. It means nothing really for us down here, but if this becomes the eye wall, then you've really got a significant problem, because then the winds are going to increase, perhaps back up to a Category 3. But for the time being, it looks to me like the worst weather is still on the outer eye wall, and that's good, at least relatively speaking. In case the storm were to increase in strength, that would be a bad thing. If we put the storm into motion, you can see it getting very, very close now, at least the outer eye wall, and I think it's going to go into motion. I think the computer is resetting itself. But
La tormenta tropical, que está localizada a 1.500 millas de distancia de las Antillas Menores. Y bueno, distancia del área de Miami sería por lo menos 2.500 millas de distancia de nosotros. Está en una latitud sumamente baja. Sus vientos actualmente, de Iván me refiero, son de 60 millas por hora. Se está moviendo, como ven, hacia el oeste y tiene 20 millas por hora su traslación. Si la quiere empezar a seguir también en otro mapa de trayectoria de los de Telemundo 51, 9.4 grados norte la latitud, 48.3 grados oeste, y la presión barométrica está en 994 milibaras. Proyección de la traslación de Iván de aquí a 5 días. La presenta entrando al Caribe Oriental, estando muy cerca posiblemente de territorio dominicano, o tal vez más al sur, cerca de la zona sur-centro del Mar Caribe, o tal vez más al norte, a mitad de camino, digamos, entre las Bahamas y las Bermudas, en un rumbo en general hacia el oeste-noroeste, de aquí a ver, hoy siendo sábado, domingo, lunes, martes, miércoles, jueves de la semana entrante estaría en esa posición Iván. Es la proyección de la trayectoria del sistema durante los próximos días. Obviamente estaremos siguiéndola para ustedes, pero sigo enfatizando que no es momento de estar pendiente de Iván, es momento de estar pendiente de Frances todavía, aún nosotros aquí en el sur de la península, donde poco está ocurriendo comparado con lo que está ocurriendo en la parte cercana a Palm Beach y puntos al norte de ahí. Sigue siendo una noche de tiempo borrascoso, con turbonadas, con ventarrones, y vamos a enfocarnos en lo que tenemos aquí en nuestras puertas, y la semana que viene hablaremos de Iván. Pero como se los prometí, lo puse en pantalla, no es parte de mi política en los años que llevo cubriendo huracanes estar hablando de ciclones que vienen detrás cuando todavía tenemos uno en nuestras puertas, pero bueno, pensé que a petición popular pues lo pondría en pantalla. Noten, por cierto, lo mucho que se debilitan las bandas que van pasando hacia la punta sur de la península, mientras el núcleo del ciclón se mantiene fuerte. Ay, caramba, y qué bueno que no estamos en esta parte del huracán, la parte que está al norte, porque claramente este huracán en su mitad norte es mucho, mucho más fuerte de lo que es en su mitad sur. Por eso el alerta de tornados cubre la mitad norte y no cubre nada del sur en estos momentos. Y por eso la lluvia.
And that he had experienced a roof coming off of a restaurant just down the street. We do.
Between Fort Pierce and West Palm.
Condado hoy a las 2 de la tarde. Él llega al aeropuerto internacional de Palm Beach, y también la Guardia Nacional se supone que llegue para ver cuáles son los daños y para empezar ya a ayudar a los damnificados con estas fuertes ráfagas de viento que definitivamente causan bastantes estragos. Muchos semáforos están en el piso, también embarcaciones se pueden ver damnificadas, obviamente muchas ramas de árboles caídas, ¿verdad?
Una gran cantidad de transformadores, que se les llama también, sufrieron muchos daños tras esta tormenta. Explotaron, dejando muchas y muchas, miles, cientos de personas sin fluido eléctrico.
As the winds continue to rotate around the storm in a cyclonic fashion. So that's the story there for Stewart. It's going to continue to get pounded now by the other side of the eye wall. If we could put up graphic 6, I want to show you some of the wind speeds and obviously the latest satellite loops as we get them in. We get them in every 15 minutes, and our latest one should be in this image group. And you can see the eye now pushing over the inland parts of Florida. And if you notice something about the storm that's rather interesting, it's more symmetrical now on the satellite loop than it was, say, 24 hours ago. And that's signs that the storm did intensify and was better organized as it has made its way onto the coastline. And that was anticipated by the National Hurricane Center because of, number one, the shear lessening in the upper levels of the atmosphere. It allowed the storm to strengthen somewhat and at least get a little more symmetrical in its imagery from space. And also the fact to move over the Gulf waters, some warm waters there between Florida and the Bahamas that will allow the storm to fuel up a bit. And especially we have to still deal with that here on the eastern side of the storm as those feeder bands continue to move over some very warm waters. And we just saw the reports coming in from Marsh Harbor They're located here on Abaco Island, so you can see they're still in the tropical storm force gust, as the eastern side of this hurricane much larger than the smaller western side, as the storm has been lopsided now for the last couple of days once it was downgraded from a 4 to a 3 and on into a 2. A little closer view. You can see the storm is now 7 miles inland from Stewart up to our north. The south side of this, we are obviously blanketed in the clouds with this storm, but the rain is still inhibited on the western and the south side. So the wettest part of the storm is off to our north and wrapped around back on the east. And that's why we can't rule out the chance of more feeder bands coming in through in the next 24 to 36 hours as the storm continues to push off in a west-northwest direction, because the eastern side of the storm is the healthier side, and they're in for another round up around Fort Pierce. The 4-hour radar loop here, you can see the storm quite impressive, but again, you notice on the south and west side, notice how it really dries out here from, say, Broward, Dade counties back towards Monroe, Lee, and Collier. We're really escaping this storm pretty good here across South Florida, because if this storm was flip-flop, you can see the northern fringe of the storm, where it obviously is most powerful, and most hurricanes are. The rain and intense bands extend out a great distance all the way up to the Jacksonville area. Obviously, Cape Canaveral in here, Daytona getting this pretty powerful band that continues to push off now towards the west coast of Florida and into the Panhandle. And we want to show you a little closer view again there. There's Stewart, there's the eye making landfall, but most importantly now the wind speed directions here across South Florida. And notice they've changed direction as this eye continues to move inland. Earlier over the last 12 hours or so, our winds were coming out of the west-northwest as the eye was bowed over the ocean. And now they're coming more out of the southwest as the winds are wrapping around the storm in a west. They're getting in a southwest direction here, especially across Kendall and Homestead there, where those observations are coming in. Sustained winds right now. Opelika has a sustained wind speed of 46 miles per hour. Now that is officially tropical storm force sustained winds in the northern parts of Dade County, and obviously Kendall still sustained at 26, and all the way down in the Keys, sustained winds have been between 15 and 20 miles per hour. Wind gusts coming in put the Opelika reading up around 54 with the gust, and winds gusting from 30 miles per hour in Marathon all the way.
Not just where the rain is, the wind picks up a little bit before the eastern side of the eye wall moves in there, and there's Juno Beach right there, and you can kind of see that little poking out part right there, that the winds really pick up right in here and over Juno Beach. As you can see, it just bam, it just picks up like that as soon as that thing moves in. So there's rain on the way as well, and then we'll pull back out and show you how wide this thing is and who's next. Looks like north of Stewart should be getting some pretty strong winds. Fort Pierce getting some rain again. Palm Beach getting some rain, and south of Palm Beach, boy, it's really raining heavily. And then you can look back out here just between Juno Beach and Stewart. They got still a little bit of time to finish up, fix that shutter and get back inside right quick, because it's on the way. Going to kick right back up. As you can see here, here's the full extent of it, and it extends all the way up to Vero Beach and points north and down to Boca Raton. So this is the roughest part of the storm right now. This entire donut here, the whole donut, this is the part that's on the way. This is the part that's moving inland, and some of those bands
might have family in around the central and northern portions of Florida, where we're seeing a tornado watch in effect through 8:15 this morning. And don't rule out possibility of that spin in the upper atmosphere tomorrow as well. So keeping a close eye on this situation. Again, a tornado watch has been issued by the National Weather Service for portions of central and northern Florida through 8:15 this morning. Again, what we're dealing with today is more of what we saw yesterday, if not worse, especially north of the Fort Pierce area, where we're seeing the center of the eye. This is a 3-hour loop. At the beginning of the loop, we still see the center of the eye just north of West Palm Beach. We're starting to see the western half of this eye start to cover portions of St. Lucie County, Martin County, headed toward, as well as West Palm Beach. You can see the center of the eye starting to make its way toward Lake Okeechobee. Again, no activity in the center of the eye. What we're worried about is the counterclockwise spin of the eye wall, and that's where we're seeing the heaviest precipitation right now. In the right front quadrant, you can see the shades of yellow, shades of orange there. That is the heaviest rain that we're seeing at this point. Also to the north of us, as we take a look at that in a bit. Again, some drier air mixing in toward the inland areas, so possibly a slight break before we see another deluge of rain moving across the top in that counterclockwise circulation, and you can see the storm surge. As a storm, you can see the picture of the 9 here as that continues in a west-northwest motion at this time. Again, still could change later on in the day. As that moves, we could see some storm surge up along the Fort Myers area. Unfortunately, the same areas that Charlie hit. And again, folks there still dealing with the cleanup of Charlie, and that's not good news. All right, I know it's still early, but we are talking about Tropical Storm Ivan this morning. Again, still well away from our area, thousands of miles away, but we're going to talk about it just to let you know that there is something else brewing out there, and as it comes closer to us, if it does, we will also have that for you. So far, the projected path of Francis, again, the cone of error, this thing could shift at any point because of the steering winds, but at this point, we have it moving into portions of Español by Thursday at 8 o'clock. So again, well, days away, but again, if you Monday, and again, don't let your guard down over the next 24 to 36 hours. It may seem safe to head outside. You might think that gas stations are open. Those places will remain closed probably for the next 24 hours because, again, we want EOC, FEMA to get out there and check any sort of damage. So, again, be advised.
Y aquí los datos de las 9 de la mañana sobre la ubicación del huracán Francis. Continúa perdiendo algo de su furia, pero permanece como categoría 1 en la escala Saffir-Simpson. Vientos de 90 millas por hora. Se está desplazando ahora en línea directa oeste a razón de 7 millas por hora, enfilando sus cañones a la bella ciudad de Tampa, 110 millas hacia el este, sureste de la costa occidental, y se espera que ingrese en el Golfo de México posiblemente esta noche o en el día de mañana. Su futura trayectoria continuará su paso hacia Tampa, posiblemente ya debilitándose a categoría de tormenta tropical. Cuando ingrese en este sector, se verá todavía grandes acumulaciones de lluvia. Después va a entrar en el Golfo de México. Después comienza la preocupación para el noroeste, centro y noreste de la península floridana. Es muy posible que azote esa zona con vientos de hasta 70 millas por hora.
It went offshore last night, and now it's onshore. And it is diminishing. The storm is weakening. Headline: the hurricane is weakening very rapidly. Winds were 105. Now it's down to about 90 miles per hour. I've got the advisory here in just a moment. So the storm is moving. But pay attention to that big white blob that's down there. That has swept through. We don't have to worry about that anymore. What I am concerned about are more white appendages, so to speak, coming out of that satellite image throughout the day today and sweeping through. So the headline is the worst is over. It generally will be getting better, but the caveat is we will be going through more tropical storm force winds in bands that develop around that center. Here's a little closer view of the center of the storm. There you can see it's covered up now. Remember, we had the eye exposed for a while yesterday offshore. Go back to the first image right there. That was just at landfall last night. And there you can see it just lumbering along to the northwest. Still a lot of red in the middle of the picture, so that's still hurricane force winds, generally speaking, underneath the red. There's that little V-shaped area. We're going to, when it comes up again, I'll draw it on the telestrator right through there, which is to the north of the Keys. So that will be kind of clearing us out for a while. And I know a lot of you do not have power. You don't have your electricity. You're listening on radio, so I'm going to try to be
huge. This is tapping moisture from the Atlantic off the Carolinas. It wraps around it. It's tapping moisture from the Gulf of Mexico into it, and it's also, if you get a feel for this now, it's tapping from the Caribbean all the way into the center of circulation. So we are looking at a huge circulation which covers from the Carolinas to the Caribbean, and this all is only sliding slowly westward. The only thing we hope for is that the center, which is encountering friction now, gets less intense, which is doing, and it's going to send out less intense feeder bands or waves at us from northwest to southeast. But then once it gets in the Gulf, look how wide this is. Once it gets in the Gulf, that's not too far west, we could still get these over the Keys and southeast Florida. In fact, Miami-Dade and the Keys have had worse weather today than they had when the storm was coming in from the Atlantic yesterday.
Looks like it. And look what's parked right over the area where Charlie hit. I mean, they're getting soaked in Charlotte County, too.
Yeah, and you know, and they don't need any more rain, and they're going to have storm surge flooding, maybe not quite as bad where Charlie hit, but north of Tampa and up in the northeast Gulf, 4 to 6 foot storm surge. They'll probably have 1 to 3 foot storm surge down in the southwest coast.
So the storm is like the Energizer Bunny, and it's getting juice from the Gulf, the Atlantic, and the Caribbean.
Yeah, all 3 bodies of water. When a storm, when an envelope is this large, it wants to tap for all the moisture it can get. Yeah.
All right. Here, but as you look across at the barrier island, In our hotel over there, we had power, never lost power, maybe blinked once or twice throughout the night. We also, we know that the traffic lights are out over there, and that makes it a hazardous condition, and they still aren't letting anybody out of the EOC. We can roll you some tape of what we saw as hurricane.
On time, we need a little opportunity to just kind of think about things, and B, we're going to still be dealing with the direct effects of what's happening.
Let's take it from the southeastern U.S. We'll go from the southeastern U.S. and into the Atlantic, and then the forecast is for it to curve to the west-northwest in time, possibly affecting the greater Antilles, whether it's Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, or Haiti, and possibly Cuba. But look at this cone again. We're talking the end of next week down in the greater Antilles, but the margin of error would be very large, anywhere from west underneath us into the Caribbean and into Mexico or Central America, over the islands, which they don't want, obviously, and it would be kind of cut up by the mountainous terrain, or on the right side of the cone out into the Atlantic Ocean. And as I said before, this storm system has to be watched closely, but it would take a perfect track to get it. It's so far south right now to get it up in here, but obviously it's pointing in the direction of the U.S. and into the islands. It's something we have to watch closely. We'll get rid of Francis first.
And this is what it looked like and sounded like just after midnight in the strike zone. Francis finally coming ashore.
Have a look at what we found underneath the devastation in one South Florida neighborhood, a house. Good evening again, South Florida. We can now tell you it is over. Francis finally moving out of Florida.
But the cleanup will most likely take quite a while. Tonight we have a network of night team reporters lined up along the coast to bring you what you may not have seen during the course of the storm, those several hours. We'll begin in Melbourne with the night team's Dave Cartoonan.
After we've plotted her course for nearly a week, Francis finally made her arrival on the east coast of Florida this morning, but it took nearly 2 days of rain and conditions for her to make landfall, and she isn't finished yet. When she is, nearly the entire state of Florida will be affected by this storm. The wind, the rain, the water.
The Indian River is just ferocious. I have never seen it like this.
After an agonizing wait, Francis finally shows her face, and it isn't a pretty one.
We just talked to the police a short time ago. They say we're having sustained winds now of 85 miles per hour.
East Central Florida, ground zero of Francis's force, the storm's eye announcing her arrival just north of Palm Beach County with powerful winds and driving rain. But her arrival wasn't the end. It was only the beginning.
That was the worst hurricane I've ever seen in Florida. I've been here all my life.
Like many house guests, her stay in the Sunshine State is lasting way too long. In Melbourne, Francis felt for more than 40 hours.
The water's now going into these low-lying homes that were boarded up, but there's absolutely no way they'll be able to withstand this wind and this water.
And no one was spared. St. Augustine, Daytona, and Vero Beach battered before Francis moved on to the West Coast. But this was no curtain call. Francis supposed to strengthen again before an encore in the Panhandle. Here in Melbourne, we are still feeling windy conditions and occasional downpours and a steady drizzle. There is no electricity in the city, and residents who have water, if they have it, are ordered to boil it until further notice. In Melbourne, Dave Cartoonan, 7 News Night Team.
That's the situation in Melbourne. We want to head south now to West Palm Beach.
That is where we find the night team's Rosh Lowe.
And now it's about dealing with Hurricane Francis. Still a community with a curfew, people returning to their homes now and dealing with a mess with flooded streets and loss of power. The first pictures coming in of the damage caused by Hurricane Francis. You are looking at condos and businesses. You are looking at the destruction caused by the wind and the rain. The persistent rains, a sinkhole on I-95 in Palm Beach County, a neighborhood flooded, cars traversing the treacherous roads, the water reaching the bumper, a home damaged in West Palm Beach, a ceiling destroyed, the force of Francis, millions without power. The process starts cleaning up, moving forward the day after a hurricane. Many people here in the West Palm Beach area saying when they returned to their homes, they were very lucky and very surprised to see many trees that had fallen down, but lucky to still have a place to call home. Hurricane Francis affecting a large portion of Florida, affecting the theme parks in the Orlando area, which are currently closed. A decision will be made to open them on Monday. In West Palm Beach, Rosh Lowe, 7 News, 19.
And the pictures that you saw, though, they are taken by our crews out on the road, really just the beginning of what this storm brought.
Now we have a view for you from the air, and the scenes we're about to show you, some of them are stunning. The Night Team's Lynn Martinez putting this together for us from the Plex. Lynn?
Yeah, just like with Hurricane Andrew, you really don't appreciate the damage until you see things from a different perspective, the air. Tonight we've got aerials of the destruction from Hurricane Francis in Palm Beach. Known for residents with lots of cash, Palm Beach's expensive toys are trashed by Francis. The roof of a storage facility for yachts is peeled away. Many of the boats that were on the dock now in the water. Check out this private hangar. Jet aviation with some serious roof damage. The mansions right on the water, just yards from the beach, turned out okay, with the exception of this large home and its peeled off shingles. But the beaches themselves have partially eroded. As for the people who do not live in mansions, some were out of luck. Nearly every trailer in this mobile home park with siding torn off and roofing materials ripped away. Top that with 6 inches of rain and there is water damage inside. It's almost like a tornado skipped around, choosing which trailers to damage. The golf courses will take some time to dry out, considering there's more lake than there is green. And this is an aerial view of that sinkhole we've been telling you about on I-95. And here's what you really want to know about Palm Beach. Worth Avenue, known for its very ritzy shops, is okay. In fact, Tiffany's, Giorgio Armani, and Dana Buchman stores even have the lights on at this hour. Don't think about going there yet. There is still a curfew, at least for Palm Beach. In the Newsplex, Lynn Martinez, 7 News, 19.
One major lingering problem tonight, of course, the loss of power. Tens of thousands of customers in the dark.
The Night Team's Diane Fernandez is in Fort Lauderdale with some new information for us.
Thankfully, Hurricane Francis may have left homes and businesses intact, but she's sure disrupted many lives. Take a look here in this Fort Lauderdale neighborhood where residents are still tonight in the dark, and this is just one of many neighborhoods just like it. It's lights out for many across South Florida. Like hundreds of thousands of families like them, the Bonds of Fort Lauderdale are just trying to get by without lights and air conditioning, all in the hot, humid air Francis left in her soggy wake.
With the wind blowing, we're okay because, you know, we can open up the windows, but it's miserable. It's really miserable. And the
already stir crazy, the Bonds, like everyone on their block and everyone in their...
This is Craig and Belkey's. It is now obviously a tropical storm, 70-mile-an-hour winds, and it's forecast to go into the Gulf of Mexico and re-intensify into a minimal hurricane as it makes its trek back to the northwest and then north. And then it would weaken to a tropical depression in the southeastern U.S. somewhere, and then from that point probably follow a dangerous track. By dangerous, I mean Tennessee Valley, maybe the Appalachians, and that could bring out a lot of moisture and severe weather with this as it travels into the continental U.S. However, the storm system is not behaving according to this track at this point. It's kind of wanting to follow the right-hand side of this cone. And remember, these cones are there for a reason. But here are the latest watches and warnings anyway. We do have tropical storm warning still as of 5 o'clock. Now, this may all change on the 11 o'clock advisory. South of Florida City up to Anna Maria Island, tropical storm warnings, and also from Flagler Beach to Fernandina Beach on the east side of Florida because of that counterclockwise circulation, and then hurricane warnings because of the anticipation of it re-strengthening to a Category 1 storm before it makes landfall. But notice the circulation center, part of it is still on land. It kind of did a loop-the-loop right around Tampa Bay. And half of it is offshore, half of it's still onshore. It's trying to make it out into the Gulf of Mexico, but if it hugs the coastline, there's a chance it may not be a hurricane before it makes landfall again. So we'll see if that happens. But look at these feeder bands again, all the way up into northeast Florida, back into the storm system, and these other feeder bands coming down the state. have prompted an urban flood advisory for, again, parts of Miami-Dade County until 11:30 because of ponding of water on the roadways and 2 to 4 inch rains around the Kendall and Sweetwater area and extreme South Miami-Dade County. And even some lightning and thunder now in parts of Miami-Dade and Broward County. And it's been unusual that we have even seen lightning or heard thunder with this system. But there is one of those feeder bands with a heavy activity offshore right now. A south-southwest wind, very gusty at 25, gusting at times to 40 miles per hour. So we are going to be seeing that continuing. And again, there are the wind speeds, 25 to 32 sustained with gusts of 41 in Homestead last hour. But this is that feeder band that's moving out into the Atlantic now. And if you look to the east, or if you're over near the beaches and you look out, you're going to see the lightning as well as maybe hear some thunder. And this is just since this morning, almost 10 inches Palm Beach, about 15 inches total at the airport, and we'll add to these numbers in parts of Miami-Dade County. Now to Ivan. It is way out there, but it's become the first major hurricane to form at such a low latitude in history, an unprecedented event. It is forecast to move west-northwest and maybe affect the Lesser Antilles early in the week, the Greater Antilles, by that I mean Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Haiti, possibly Cuba by the latter part of the week, and also notice in the cone here is Jamaica, the Cayman Islands. But this is a cone for a reason, because there is a huge margin of error in here, and that means it can be anywhere from the Caribbean deep to our south. It could curve to our north and east and go out to sea, but the bottom line is it is a storm system we may have to watch closely, because it is in that part of the world, and it does move to the west-northwest, and that's the motion right now. However, when you talk about steering currents with this, Francis could come into play as well, because the high pressure that's going to steer Francis finally to the west and then to the north, big area of high pressure developing in the east, and that will send Francis up into the southeastern U.S., the Ohio and Tennessee valleys, maybe be a big rainmaker there. But if the trough in the west stays put and that big area of high pressure, if that high has a weakness, that could allow Ivan to curve prematurely, which would be good for the United States, even good for the Greater Antilles. So just a lot to talk about here. And
la fuerza de un huracán. En el olvido, llaves para una puerta que no existe. Una flor que tal vez hizo a alguien sonreír. ¿A quién le gustarían tanto las películas? Una receta para ensalada de cangrejo, canela en polvo, moldes de pan minuciosamente marcados, dan fe de que a alguien le gustaba llenar esta cocina de ricos olores. Tornillos para la videocasetera en un frasco de medicinas, esos pequeños detalles que hacen de cada casa un hogar, miles de recuerdos que quedaron en ruinas y que ahora la lluvia se encargará de borrar. Estos recuerdos tienen dueño. Lo que David Borowitz tardó 25 años en reunir, Francis se lo arrebató en una noche de ira. En el otoño de su vida, con una esposa minusválida que lo espera en un albergue, deberá recoger sus pedazos. Mañana será un nuevo día y para David, un nuevo empezar.
Un nuevo empezar, sí. Huracán que rompe el récord que tenía el huracán Flora, el mismo que impactó a Cuba en 1963, como el huracán más intenso en desarrollarse al sur del paralelo 10, al sur de la latitud 10. Ahora Iván tiene ese nuevo récord. Claro, todos ustedes de Cuba recuerdan a Flora, que impactó tan fuertemente a las provincias orientales de ese país. Este huracán pudiera también impactar a Cuba. Su trayectoria futura, sin embargo, como siempre, tiende a ser algo incierta, pero lo que sí parece casi seguro es que Iván deberá impactar el Caribe en las Antillas Menores, y ya hay vigilancia de huracán esta noche para Barbados y el área de Trinidad. Actualmente el huracán es de categoría 4 ya. Es un huracán de categoría 4, el cuarto ciclón de gran categoría que se forma este año, con una presión barométrica sumamente baja y vientos de 135 millas por hora, y está ya a menos de 1000 millas de las Antillas Menores. Ahí tienen la latitud y longitud en pantalla por si quiere empezar a seguirlo en su mapa de trayectoria. La proyección del movimiento, según el Centro Nacional de Huracanes, pues la que ven, una trayectoria que la trae entrando al Caribe como categoría 4, posiblemente pasando al sur de Puerto Rico así de intenso, y tal vez cerca de República Dominicana entrando como un gran ciclón que pudiera causar serios destrozos. Ahora, la interrogante es, de aquí al viernes, ¿estará tan al sur como Jamaica o estará tan al norte como si fuera en rumbo a las Bermudas? No sabemos. Está claro todo dentro de este cono de incertidumbre que ustedes conocen. Sencillamente no podemos precisar en estos momentos dónde va a estar. Es una gran diferencia, claro está, si está aquí abajo o si está aquí arriba para el área de la Florida. Y esta semana eso se va a ir definiendo. Lo que sí les digo es que la situación meteorológica no va a ser la misma. O sea, me he recibido varias llamadas de personas preguntándose si va a haber un sistema de alta presión aquí bloqueando a Iván cuando esté más o menos en esta zona. Pero el hecho de que está curveando hacia el noroeste les da a ustedes una indicación de que la situación no sería necesariamente idéntica. Debería haber una vaguada girando el sistema hacia el norte. La interrogante es cuándo gira y qué tan brusco va a ser el giro hacia el norte, si va a ser más hacia el oeste o si va a ser sobre mar abierto. Eso aún no lo sé.
Feeder bands that are moving through South Florida right now. Showers and storms moving in the western areas of Miami-Dade, pulling up into Broward, also through the Keys. You can see this feeder band here. There's another one farther off to the west, moving through Everglades City, Marco Island. Alligator Alley is getting wet this afternoon, and just offshore, too, we are seeing some more wet weather there. Here's a wider look at what is now Tropical Storm Francis. The center of it still in the Gulf of Mexico, not making landfall just yet. Still pulling up a lot of moisture in our area this afternoon. Some peaks of sunshine, some showers, some clouds, and some storms expected here later this afternoon as the hurricane, or tropical storm rather, continues to work off to the north and west. Here's a look at the advisory as of 11 o'clock this morning. Puts it 200 miles to the east-southeast of Pensacola, with winds right now sustained at 65 miles an hour, gusting up to 75. Moving to the northwest at 10 miles an hour, expected to make landfall once again sometime this afternoon. Therefore, there's a hurricane warning in effect from Indian Pass down to the Suwannee River, and on both sides, from Destin to Indian Pass and from the Suwannee River down to Anna Maria Island. We do have tropical storm warnings in effect for this afternoon. Now, here's a look at Ivan and where it's located, just to the east of the islands right now. This is expected to intensify as we head through the upcoming days. Here's a closer look at the storm. There was an eye earlier. It was at once a Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. It is now a Category 3. Here are the islands just over, well, behind my back, and then farther off to the east is
Panhandle. Still seeing remnants along the backside of the storm. You can see portions of central northern Florida getting hit this afternoon. A tornado warning in effect for central and northern portions of the state. Along the southern end of Florida, you can see a few isolated showers popping up around Monroe and Collier County, as well as Miami-Dade and Broward this afternoon. That will soon diminish, and then a few isolated showers expected for tonight. Update you now on Hurricane Ivan, 11.2 north, 53.4 west. Maximum sustained winds at 125 miles per hour. Right now, a Category 3 storm. It did lose some of its strength over the last 24 hours. Here's a look at the storm. You can see here, right where the highlighted areas. This is Ivan right now. Still about 1,200 miles away from the Lesser Antilles, but already hurricane warnings in effect for the areas of the Barbados, and again, hurricane watches for the Barbados and potential for hurricane warnings later on in the day. The path for Francis, you can see the projected path by Saturday morning. Looking closer to us, eastern seaboard there, so we will be keeping our close eye on this hurricane as it moves closer to us.
Storm, while still far out in the Atlantic, is heading in our general direction. Good afternoon again, and here we go again.
Another week of watching a powerful hurricane and waiting to see exactly where it's going to strike. Let's get right to it. 7's Alita Laresca has the latest forecast track. Hi, Alita.
Hi, Christine. Good afternoon, everybody. Much like Francis, where we were last week is where we are with Ivan today. Again, it might be a drawn-out process, but we're keeping a close eye on Ivan, even though it's still about 1,600 miles away from South Florida. 11.8 degrees north, 60.2 degrees west. These are the latest coordinates from the Hurricane Center. Winds right now sustained at 115 miles per hour, Category 3 storm. So it has intensified over the last 24 hours and projected to strengthen even more as the days to come. Movement is west at 18 miles per hour, now 45 miles northeast of Tobago. As we take a look at the imagery and give you a better idea of the perspective of where Ivan is. At this point, the center of the storm, very well defined. You can see it there, packing in those thunderstorms, convective activity through all four quadrants. You can see the storm nearing Barbados right where my finger is, Tobago, just to the south of that area. The Leeward and Windward Islands already keeping a close eye on this system. Taking a look at the projected path, all of us interested on where this system is heading over the next several days leading up to the weekend. It looks like the storm is headed toward the Caribbean as early as Thursday night into Friday morning, possibly even around the Hispaniola area. And by Sunday morning, potential for this system around
hotels in Barbados, although not a direct hit in Barbados, but Grenada took the direct hit. We have hurricane warnings out for the ABC Islands. The Dutch, Netherlands, Antilles has issued hurricane warnings. If a hurricane condition came to Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, to be the second time in 127 years. And there are hurricane watches and tropical storm warnings out for the north coast of Venezuela, as well as the Guajira Peninsula of Colombia. So again, this forecast cone shifting to the right. Again, you can't panic when it shifts to the right because it's still only Tuesday, and we're talking about a weekend event. But obviously, it's something we have to watch in the Eastern Gulf, the Keys, Florida, and the Bahamas, and we'll keep you updated. Here are the latest coordinates that we have as of 8 o'clock, but the 11s are in. The cone updates automatically. I'll go and get the coordinates for you. I'm sure that the latitude is about the same. The longitude probably about 63 something at this point. Moving west at 18, the pressure is about same, 950. I wouldn't think too much has changed because, again, we had the wind still about 130.
Cobrando fuerza, nuestro meteorólogo John Morales nos tiene lo último. John.
Sí, ha recuperado esa fuerza que había perdido durante el día de ayer. Ahora vuelve a ser huracán de categoría 4 con vientos de 135 millas por hora, porque aunque está pasando por un área donde típicamente vemos muchos ciclones morir, el Caribe Oriental, eso usualmente solo sucede con aquellos que ya no están bien estructurados. Y obviamente este está muy bien formado. Pasó sobre Granada, ráfagas de viento 118 millas por hora mientras pasó por ahí. Y ahora se dirige hacia el oeste. Hay avisos de huracán para las islas holandesas de Aruba, Curazao y Bonaire. Y además por fin se emitió una vigilancia de huracán para la costa norte de Venezuela. Lo mismo está en efecto para partes del extremo norte de Colombia. Claro, todavía está algo lejos del sur de la Florida y podemos ver la distancia está aproximadamente a 1.300 millas todavía de nuestra área y no se sabe si va a ser un factor para nosotros o no. Más de eso en breve, pero veamos entonces la información de las 11 de la noche de la posición del sistema 12.1 norte de latitud, 63.3 grados oeste de longitud. Si usted ha estado siguiendo esto en un mapa de trayectoria, sabe que ha sido un rumbo casi directo hacia el oeste, con una que otra ondulación, pero bien directo hacia el oeste. Está a 335 millas al este de Bonaire, en esas islas que le acabo de mencionar, y pegadito a la costa suramericana. Pero esos vientos de 135 se extienden solamente a pocas millas del centro, así que para Venezuela, por ejemplo, principalmente es la lluvia la preocupación en estos momentos. Con el huracán moviéndose hacia el oeste, es curioso ver cómo el centro de huracanes insiste en que de inmediato va a empezar a moverse hacia el noroeste. Ya en la posición del huracán está a 150 millas al sur de donde el Centro Nacional de Huracanes había pronosticado que estuviera hoy día. Como ven, la proyección de los próximos 5 días la presenta moviéndose hacia el Caribe Occidental, afectando al oeste de Cuba, como habíamos presentado a las 6 de la tarde, en rumbo hacia el Golfo de México. Entre las posibilidades...
Well, if you're just waking up with us this morning, the latest here. Here is a look at Hurricane Ivan. The fury of this Category 4 storm felt across parts of the Caribbean. Good morning, everyone. I'm Delane Matthew.
And I'm Richard Lemus. A question in South Florida, is Ivan headed our way? Alita Laresca is live in the Weather Center with the projected path. Alita.
We'll be looking at that path in just a bit. First, let's get a look at the coordinates. Latest coordinates from the Hurricane Center, 12.4 north, 64.8 west. Maximum sustained winds right now at 140 miles per hour, and even stronger storm from where it was over the last 4 to 6 hours, once 135. So getting stronger as it moves through the waters of the Atlantic. Again, the movement west at 16 miles per hour, a little over 1,300 miles away from South Florida. Getting a better look at the system and where it is exactly. Let's take a look at the imagery. You can see the core of this system making its way toward the islands just north of South America, affecting areas of Aruba. Heavy downpours being reported, very strong winds, hurricane force winds from the core in the outer bands extending about 80 miles from the core of this system, and tropical storm force winds extending outwards of about 125 miles. So the Landward and the Lesser Islands along the backside still feeling the impact of Ivan. Storm scan now to take a look at the projected path and where we fall
along that path. Again, over the next several days, this system will continue on a westerly track, then start to shift northwest over the next 24 to 36 hours, possibly picking up steam. This is the latest cone here, and you can see by Friday morning, possibility of even a stronger Category 4 storm. Now, 155 will bring it upgraded to a Category 5 storm, but at this point, Sunday morning rather, and through the next work week, this cone begins to widen out and even makes a shift toward the north, possibly affecting South Florida. Again, we'll find out more on our advisories later to come, but at this point, we're going to keep a close eye.
See, folks, this storm system, a very powerful and extremely dangerous Category 4 storm, but look at these thunderstorms wrapping into the system. If I draw this, there it goes like that, and then it's taking the thunderstorms again, South America, wrapping it in as well, and there is the hurricane symbol you see on the weather maps. That it looks exactly like the symbol, and that's what's going on. So the inflow is very good in this system. The outflow is excellent in all quadrants. These high clouds fanning out in a clockwise fashion, west, north, east, and south. So there's the upper level high pressure area. So this still could get stronger, although there'll be minor fluctuations in intensity as time goes on. We'll have to watch this again be a very dangerous hurricane as it moves through the Caribbean Sea. Then the question is, when is the turn to the right going to occur, and how will that, if at all, impact the Keys and Florida? I want to take you over to 7 Storm Scan first, and Tom was speaking about Francis and the flooding in the Northeast. Believe it or not, these heavy rains from Plantation to Lauderdale, just north of Fort Lauderdale. Ivan is way out, 1,175 miles away. 140-mile-an-hour winds, 13.4, 67.7. It is moving westerly, big area of high pressure, although there is an upper-level low sitting right here. We'll see if that comes into play with it. But a big area of high pressure in the Atlantic is steering it to the west or west-northwest right now. There's Francis. There's the actual low center in the mid-Atlantic, but an enormous amount of rain and tornadoes with this storm system, and the damage is not done yet. So it's how Francis's wake, the path left by Francis, and the trough in the east and the ridge in the Atlantic all play together to determine how far to the northwest and north.
Homes on the island. The latest forecast track shows Ivan heading for the Florida Keys and then tearing right through the center of our state. Meteorologist Trent Eric is here now with the latest numbers on Ivan. Trent?
Diane, we got the 11 o'clock advisory in from the Hurricane Center. We've been plotting it, reading through the data, and trying to get an idea of where we're headed with this storm. All we can tell you right now is the storm for sure is located at 14.5 north, 71.4 to the west. It is now just under 1,000 miles southeast of the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. The winds are sustained at 160 miles per hour with gusts just shy of 200 miles per hour with 195. The storm continues in a west-northwesterly movement at 15 miles per hour. The pressure continues to drop, now at 920 millibars. And just to give you an idea of how strong this Category 5 hurricane is, Category 5 is the highest on the Saffir-Simpson scale. There is no Category 6. Category 5 is tops. And a hurricane gets that Category 5 status when it gets 155 mile per hour sustained winds or greater. Also, just to give you an idea of the strength of Ivan, 920 millibars. If this hurricane was to make landfall right now in the U.S. with that pressure, that would be the 3rd lowest pressure of a recorded landfall hurricane in history, and that would be one higher than Hurricane Andrew, which hit back in '92 as a Category 5. Again, if you're tracking at home, 14.5 north, 71.4 west is where to put your dot. And we go on now and take a look at the satellite imagery. You can see this hurricane still in that west-northwesterly fashion, continuing to move off. It is a little smaller than Francis, larger than Charlie, so we've got a hurricane that's kind of in between. Obviously, the stronger hurricane of the three. Right now, hurricane force winds extend out 60 miles in any direction, which gives us a hurricane core of about 120 miles with sustained winds of at least 74 miles per hour or greater. As far as Ivan, it's the only game in town across the Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico, and that is good news because Ivan is about all we can handle right now. A very dangerous, very powerful storm. But as you look at this color-enhanced infrared satellite imagery, you can see the core of the hurricane begins to diminish a bit over the last couple of satellite images. This is a 12-hour loop taking you from midnight on through this morning to the noon hour. And you can see the storm still very symmetrical. It's very textbook, a well-defined eye, a very well-defined center of circulation. And with this in mind, this storm Right now, it's forecasted by the Hurricane Center to keep on as a Category 5 for a few more hours. But hurricanes, when they get to that Category 5 strength, they can't maintain the highest level possible. They can't maintain the energy. And generally, they fluctuate between a 4 and a 5, back to a 4, back to a 5. So that'll be something of interest to watch as this hurricane gets closer to Jamaica and Cuba. One other thing I want to point out again is the symmetrical aspects of the storm. If you divide it in half and either way and fold it over, this storm pretty much mirrors itself. And again, this could be going through a little fluctuation with intensity here to show the core weakening just a touch. Here is the forecasted track as of 11 o'clock this afternoon. As we put this track out into motion, notice it stays Category 5 for a while. That's indicated in the black on the legend or the deep purple shades. And this time frame is 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, and it will be just south of Jamaica. Jamaica will already be feeling the impacts of Hurricane Ivan. Once it gets that close again, hurricane force winds extend out some 60 miles, not 80 there, and tropical storm force winds extend out 160 miles in any direction from the center. We put the track on into motion. Notice it weakens a bit once it goes over Jamaica down to a Category 4 and almost a Category 3 shade there by 8 a.m. on Saturday. We continue the forecasted track on out, and again, notice the hurricane starts to take a more northerly jaunt as a Category 4 storm, and by 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, it's just to the south of Cuba, and anywhere from the Isle of Youth back into the eastern parts of Cuba is in the cone of air. Again, that storm is back to a Category 4 status. We'll put the forecast track into motion. It takes almost a due north track, more north-northwest, and this is by 8 o'clock on Monday morning. So the Hurricane Center has not only adjusted the forecasted track a little bit to the west, but also they have slowed it down a bit. Earlier they thought landfall or the storm would be in the Florida Straits sometime on 2 a.m. on Monday. So there is some slowing forecasted with this storm. Notice again, it's still a Category 4 storm, but this is a very mountainous region of Cuba, and that could play great benefits for the state of Florida, hopefully weakening the storm as we continue through the forecasted track. We'll show you the last 12 hours.
You can see here the core of the storm, again, a little away from Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica, 155 miles away. There you can see the core of the storm continuing in a west-northwesterly projection at this point at 11 miles per hour, 145 mile per hour winds, a Category 4 storm. By Sunday morning over the Cayman Islands, as early as Monday morning, we could see this entering Cuba, the western or central portions of Cuba, and then after that, the track itself or the path of Ivan is uncertain. The path could either take it toward the Gulf, toward Florida, or even toward the Bahamas and the Atlantic. Again, different stirring currents over the next couple of days will influence the path of Ivan. Again, by Tuesday morning, we could very well see the core of the system falling anywhere in South Florida, the Gulf, or in the mid-Atlantic. Here's a look at the latest imagery from Ivan. The core of this system, once again, very compact as it moves in a west-northwesterly direction toward Jamaica, Cayman Islands just north of there, or rather just to the west, and then Cuba next, and entering the Florida Straits right around Monday afternoon, Monday night. We could feel the impact here as early as Sunday afternoon.
Vigilando al huracán Iván, el cual esta tarde tiene vientos de 145 millas por hora acercándose a las costas de Jamaica, donde pudiera ya estar en horas vespertinas de hoy claramente delineado el ojo del huracán en un rumbo que no ha variado hacia el oeste-noroeste. Qué bueno sería ver el ojo de este huracán pasar al sur de Jamaica. No creo que va exactamente a suceder eso, pero ojalá que, digamos, en vez de partir la isla por el medio en diagonal, que le pase, digamos, raspando por el sur. Obviamente hay avisos de huracán en Jamaica y ya se han emitido vigilancias de huracán para todo Cuba. Está bajo vigilancia de huracán en estos momentos. No así, sin embargo, para los Cayos ni para el sur de la Florida, donde todavía hay bastante tiempo para vigilarlo. A las 2 de la tarde, esta es la información más reciente. Esta es la posición de exactamente las 2 de la tarde de hoy, 16.8 grados norte la latitud, 75.8 grados oeste la longitud, rumbo oeste-noroeste. Como ven, eso no ha cambiado en par de días, ya a 85 millas nada más de pegarle a Jamaica en el área de Kingston. La proyección de trayectoria no ha cambiado mucho tampoco desde el día de ayer. El Centro Nacional de Huracanes la trae hacia la parte occidental de Cuba, luego cruzando hacia el sureste del Golfo de México, pasando bastante al oeste de Miami, pero recordando que pueden haber variaciones, así que cualquier lugar desde el sureste del Golfo hasta incluso el área de Miami aún está dentro de las posibilidades. El cambio principal aquí, si alguno, es que todo se atrasa, porque el huracán va un poco más lento, o sea, saliendo mañana por la mañana de Jamaica acercándose a Cuba para mañana, para el domingo más bien, en la tarde, y luego el lunes tempranito por la madrugada saliendo de la costa norte de Cuba. Así que todo bastante atrasado en cuanto a su movimiento se refiere, pero la proyección de trayectoria es básicamente igual que se tenía hace un rato. Y por
Cali una de arena, ¿no? Porque el sistema, la verdad es que se ha fortalecido muchísimo en horas vespertinas. Tiene ahora vientos de 155 millas por hora, bordeando categoría 5, que empiezan las 156. O sea que es un huracán obviamente sumamente destructivo, catastrófico prácticamente, pero a la misma vez, tendencia durante las horas vespertinas a volver a moverse hacia el oeste. Kingston, la capital, está por acá, en el lado sureste de la isla, y ya queda claro que Kingston no va a recibir el ojo o ese anillo de destrucción del ojo del huracán, que está como a 30 o 35 millas de distancia al sur de la ciudad más poblada de Jamaica. Una buena noticia ahí. Ahora, todavía es muy probable que vaya rasgando la costa suroeste del país jamaiquino, y ya ven que simétrico es este huracán, vuelve a desarrollarse en esa forma tan monstruosa, donde sus vientos son sumamente intensos, y será Jamaica su impacto esta noche, y ya mañana estará moviéndose sobre las aguas cálidas del sur, de las aguas al sur del área de Cuba, que son aguas sumamente cálidas obviamente sobre el Caribe. Ahí están las últimas estadísticas: 17,5 norte de latitud, 76,9 grados oeste de longitud, sus vientos y su presión barométrica, que esta tarde, cuando salimos a las 6 de la tarde, estaba en 938 milibaras, ha caído 18 milibaras en cuestión de la noche, o sea que precipitadamente se ha intensificado el ciclón y su movimiento hacia el oeste-noroeste a razón de 10 millas por hora. En cuanto a la trayectoria futura se refiere, según el Centro Nacional de Huracanes, nada ha cambiado en realidad. Siguen fijándose en esta situación donde entraría posiblemente por la Ciénaga de Zapata en Cuba, una zona pantanosa, como ustedes conocen, en la zona sur de Cuba, para luego cruzar muy probablemente sobre la provincia de La Habana y luego hacia el área del estrecho de la Florida y el sureste del Golfo de México. Obviamente, mientras va pasando cada hora, con cada hora que pasa, este cono se va achicando un poco, porque ya estamos más y más seguros de cuál sería su trayectoria. Pero todavía, como ven, estamos hablando desde el Golfo.
From the Hurricane Center on that new path.
There really hasn't been much of a change over the last 24 hours, but there is more confidence now that with this continued west to west-northwest motion, that the likelihood of a direct impact, at least on the southeast coast of Florida, is diminishing. However, we do think that there will be a turn towards the northwest and the north to occur over the next 24 hours or so. And of course, exactly when it occurs is very important for us here. Right now, it would appear that the Cayman Islands and then Cuba will be affected in the next 24 to 36 hours, and that the center will emerge over the southeastern Gulf of Mexico early on Monday, still as a major hurricane, category 3 or higher on the Saffir-Simpson scale.
Okay, Ed, obviously we have a lot of people here in our viewing area from the Keys that have evacuated now to Miami-Dade County. If the storm holds on the current projected path, what can the folks in the Keys expect for impacts on their homes as they are now evacuated here in Miami-Dade County?
Well, if we had a perfect forecast, then the worst of the weather would be near the lower Keys or just offshore. But we know we don't have perfect forecasts, and there is still considerable uncertainty when you get out in the 2- and 3-day time frame. So it's very good that the mandatory evacuation has occurred, because any deviation to the right could bring a category 3, 4, or even 5 hurricane into the Keys. We'll hope we have a perfect forecast this time to keep the weather offshore, but we can't be sure that that will happen.
For the sake of South Florida, we hope that forecast is perfect as well, Ed. But one question we need to ask and tell people at home, even though the cone has now moved a little to the west, we still can't let our guard down here. There still is a possibility out there that the cone could move back to the east?
That's right. When we switch to that picture, if we can here, and here's the forecast, and if we had a perfect forecast, the center would pass just to the west of the Keys. But if we're off by just a little bit in a 2- to 3-day time frame, that brings in some really rough weather here. And remember, as you said before, the right side of the hurricane is where the worst of the weather is. So we're not going to be that far off from some tropical storm to maybe hurricane conditions, even on a perfect forecast. But we'll just hope it stays far enough off to the west we don't get that.
Okay, Ed, with that new track to the west there, are there any indications on timeframes of possible watches or warnings for the Keys?
There is a likelihood of a watch going into effect later tonight or early tomorrow. It depends a little bit on the two factors we're looking at in terms of the motion. One is, when does the turn occur, and how long will we have this relatively slow motion before we see acceleration? At this point, again, we're expecting that the center will emerge over the north coast of Cuba very early Monday. And if that's the case, then either later tonight or early in the morning, we would have to have a warning up for the Keys.
Okay. Ed Rappaport, the Deputy Director of the National Hurricane Center. Long day's work ahead, and it looks like, again, several days. We appreciate your insight, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you guys soon. You heard the latest there from Ed Rappaport. Again, we want to reiterate to you listening here across South Florida, even though the track has shifted to the west and the cone not in Miami-Dade or Broward counties, currently this can change. And we want to keep in mind that this storm is not forecasted to pass Cuba until early Monday, so we still have some time to go. It is only Saturday early afternoon. We still have several days, a lot of water to cross, a mountainous island country, so we still have a lot of factors to consider. There still are players that are still forecasted to move through the central U.S. and obviously that high pressure ridge. A lot of things could change. If anything does change, of course, we'll have it here on Local 10. South Florida, just bottom line, we need to continue to monitor this storm. It is a dangerous, very powerful hurricane. Mark?
Yeah, a couple of things here, Trent. First of all, as I was reading all this too, I was trying to figure all this out. I think the thing that's interesting here is when it talks about now these models become a consensus. It's kind of nice when they start working their way together. Yes. What people noticed in the background there, and I think it's worth clarifying this, is they noticed that they really have not changed the cone at the National Hurricane Center, although he was talking about exactly what you're talking about, that it is more westward and everything like that. Right. I don't want people to be confused between theirs and ours. Can you explain the nuance there and the fact that I don't believe that theirs and their website gets updated quite as often as ours does, but give a little insight there so people understand.
Sure. Earlier this morning, we were getting a lot of phone calls and emails from viewers saying, hey, we've been flipping around channels from cable networks. We even logged on and looked at the National Hurricane Center's website, and what they were seeing as far as their projected cone was a little different than what they were seeing on Local 10. Rest assured, our forecasted path is exactly the data that we get from the National Hurricane Center. We take those latitude and longitude points that they give at forecasted times and we connect them with straight lines. So what you're seeing is the exact path and the exact lines that the Hurricane Center sends down to us here at Local 10. What you're seeing on the National Hurricane Center's website, and the question was earlier this morning, the cone we showed had the eastern parts of Miami-Dade and Broward County out of the cone slightly. And the National Hurricane Center's website still had all of eastern Florida in it. What they do on their web graphics is they smooth it out a little more. They round off the points, and it's called splining. And for those of you who are in computer graphics, that kind of information, they take this information, instead of making it so point to point, and for those of you who remember the old Atari graphics, so boxy looking, they make it a little more aesthetically pleasing for people who log on to their website to make it a little prettier, pretty much in a simple term.
Isn't that interesting? And don't, when you say Atari stuff, realize that you got two people here that certainly know what Atari means and what it's all about. And some
I
people
can still play some
okay, all right.
I was very young. I have a question for people who are anxious to get back to their lives, Trent.
Sure.
We're talking about the schedule of the storm being over Cuba on Monday.
Right.
So we can expect schools and businesses, at least in Miami-Dade County, to most likely operate on schedule on Monday. Monroe County, that's still a question mark, and perhaps Tuesday is still a question mark for the rest of us. Is that a fair assessment?
That is a fair assessment. You have to remember the Keys obviously are going to be closer to the storm because of
Cuba, pero como ven, repito, quedamos aquí en la zona del sur de la Florida, fuera de esa área de riesgo. Señores, ustedes en Vero Beach, en Port St. Lucie, en toda esa región al norte de Palm Beach, también están libres de peligro. O sea, me llamaron esta noche sumamente preocupados al borde de la desesperación prácticamente, y por favor, o sea, no se preocupen de esto, que tiene un rumbo que lo va a llevar mucho más al norte en la Florida y no van a haber efectos para ustedes. Y en el caso de Fort Myers, Naples, Sarasota, habría que quedarse vigilante, no vaya a ser que haya algún giro un poquito más a la derecha. Y obviamente aquí en el sur de la Florida también lo estaremos vigilando en caso de que surja algo completamente imprevisto, pero la situación meteorológica no es tal para hacer que esto haga un giro desde donde está directamente hacia el norte o que venga para acá y haga así. O sea, eso tampoco va a suceder. Estamos bastante confiados que el sur de la Florida está totalmente fuera de peligro en cuanto a esto se refiere, y Los Cayos, el peligro está disminuyendo bastante a esta hora. 165 millas por hora el viento máximo de este huracán, uno de los más fuertes en la historia. El ciclón, desde donde está localizado, está produciendo los vientos huracanados puramente sobre el mar en estos momentos porque está a mitad de camino entre Jamaica y las Islas Caimán. Y esos vientos de 165 están concentrados justo alrededor del ojo del ciclón. Los vientos de intensidad de tormenta las ven ahí, los ven en amarillo. Ya para mañana en la noche estará llegando esa zona de vientos huracanados, pasando por Isla de la Juventud, llegando a Pinar del Río, tal vez extendiéndose un poquitín más al este dentro de la provincia de La Habana, pero deberían concentrarse esos vientos huracanados en Pinar del Río exclusivamente. Y recuerden, cuando esto llegue a la costa, la llanura del sur, en Pinar del Río, al sur de las montañas, a ser inundada por una marejada ciclónica que pudiera tener hasta 25 pies de altura, arrasando con toda comunidad costera en las playas del sur de la provincia de Pinar del Río. Muy, muy devastador puede ser para toda esa zona y estoy seguro que estarán desalojando esos residentes de esa región costera del sur de Pinar del Río. Para el tiempo que esté en el Golfo de México, los vientos de tormenta tropical se extenderían justo hasta la costa, justo hasta el área cercana al área de Tampa, por ejemplo, tal vez al área de Sarasota, pero no se extenderían, como repiten aquí, ven esto de nuevo, al área de Miami-Dade y Broward. Así que esperen que solamente tengamos esos vientos afectando sectores de las bandas justo en este instante. No se puede con esta zona de alta presión. La alta ha regido el movimiento de este huracán en todo momento. Y lo que se espera ahora es que si acaso pegue el área de Cabo San Antonio en el extremo oeste de Pinar del Río y luego sobre el área del Golfo de México, se dirigiría hacia el norte para alcanzar si acaso el área del Panhandle floridano, posiblemente cerca de Panama City en el norte de la Florida. Para el miércoles en la noche o madrugada del jueves, fíjense lo mucho que pudiera tardarse esto mientras se va moviendo sobre el Golfo. Lo que lo causaría girar hacia el norte, lo que causaría que Iván gire hacia el norte, es por fin la llegada de una vaguada un poco más profunda en la parte central de Estados Unidos que debe entrar en el Golfo. Eso nunca llegó a tiempo y estaba demasiado distante para causar un giro temprano, el cual nunca se materializó, y eso ayudó a Jamaica, ayudó a Caimán, pudiera ayudar a Cuba y definitivamente ayudó aquí al área de la Florida. Así que las noticias son buenas. Vean la trayectoria por fin trazada por el Centro Nacional de Huracanes. En todo momento han tenido que ir ajustando esto a la izquierda, a la izquierda, a la izquierda, a la izquierda, y bueno, ahora está, como ven, sobre el área central del Golfo de México. Si mantenemos los dedos cruzados para que Cuba no tenga que enfrentarse al ojo del huracán, sería maravilloso, porque todavía se pronostica que esté de categoría 4 a 5 cuando esté acercándose ya en la madrugada, esta noche, o sea, más tarde ya de madrugada, después de la medianoche, acercándose a la punta occidental de Cuba. Y como les dije,
after it had crossed the island of Jamaica, you'll see the evolution this hurricane has taken over the last few days. Here's the state of Florida right there. This was what was Tropical Depression Francis as it was moving off over New England. But let me show you as I put this into motion, watch the evolution that Hurricane Ivan has taken. Notice how the system has become progressively more symmetrical, more organized, and as a result, it is now once again a Category 5 hurricane. And by the way, as we look out here in the rest of the Atlantic Ocean, we have a lot of little disturbances, but there is so far nothing of an organized nature, so hopefully Mother Nature is going to give us a break for a while. The latest coordinates, 19.7 degrees north, 83.2 degrees west, 160 mile per hour winds. This is an extremely powerful Category 5 hurricane. Now moving west-northwest at 9 miles per hour. Central pressure 917 millibars with the eye of the hurricane with the 11 o'clock advisory. Actually located 175 miles of the southeast of the western tip of Cuba right there. Now, hopefully, if the hurricane continues on this path, it may cross to the south and to the west of the western tip of Cuba. Right now, the Hurricane Center is very concerned that the western tip is going to be its primary target. Here was the island of Grand Cayman right there. Little Cayman and Little Bragg had hurricane force winds, but they're doing okay at this point. Not as good as it is across Grand Cayman. The eye of the storm with the core of the most destructive winds passing just to the south of the island. So hopefully they were spared those 155 mile per hour winds, because you have to be in the core of the actual eye wall to actually experience those 160 mile per hour winds the hurricane is currently producing. There's the island of Jamaica, still some rain bands affecting that region there. But as we look at the forecast track and we look at the steering currents and also the watches and warnings, there is still a hurricane warning that is in effect from central to western Cuba. A tropical storm watch right now is in effect from the middle to the lower Keys from the 7 Mile Bridge south. This means that tropical storm conditions are possible within 36 hours. It doesn't mean it's expected. It means it's possible within 36 hours. Again, if the eye of the hurricane stays somewhere between the Yucatan Peninsula and also the western tip will escape the core of the most damaging winds, but they're still going to take a significant storm surge on the lower side of the island, on the south side, because as the hurricane comes on shore like this or passes anywhere to the south, a counterclockwise rotation could pile up the ocean as high as 20 feet, and they can also see 10 to 15.
Iván, cuando hablamos de Cuba, permanece como categoría 5 en la escala Saffir-Simpson, vientos de 160 millas por hora, se esperan entre 8 y 12 pulgadas de lluvia por todo el sector occidental y una marejada ciclónica entre 20 y 25 pies. Los últimos datos, se está desplazando al noroeste a razón de 8 millas por hora y ese centro de circulación o el ojo se encuentra a 85 millas al sureste del punto máximo occidental de la isla cubana. Mientras tanto, aquí se pueden apreciar en las imágenes de satélite el ojo o el centro de circulación muy bien organizado, y es precisamente alrededor del ojo donde se encuentran esos vientos de 160 millas por hora y las lluvias torrenciales, y todo parece indicar que tal como lo hizo con Jamaica y las islas de Gran Caimán, es muy posible que no haga un impacto directo ese ojo sobre territorio cubano, sino que ingrese en el Golfo de México más tarde en el día. Con todo y esto, observen esas bandas de alimentación afectando el centro y el occidente de Cuba, al igual que el estrecho de la Florida. Precipitación fuerte desde Pinal del Río, entrando ahora sobre el sector de La Habana. Esas bandas continúan afectando partes de Cayo Hueso, donde más temprano en el día una de estas bandas afectó el sector de Cayo Hueso. Conectamos con el radar Doppler 51 primero y preciso, y se puede observar que tenemos precipitación intensa entrando ahora sobre Maratón. Hace menos de una hora se reportó una ráfaga de 35 millas por hora y acumulaciones de hasta 1,25 pulgadas sobre el sector de Coyoqui, que se encuentra hacia el oeste, es decir, hacia el sur de Big Pine Key, y esa precipitación intensa continúa ahora sobre el puente de las 7 millas, desplazándose hacia el Golfo de México. Así que si tienen pensado abandonar el sur de la Florida y transitar hacia Cayo Hueso, por favor esperen hasta esta noche, posiblemente en el día de mañana. Regresando ahora hacia la computadora meteorológica, aquí se puede apreciar su pronóstico. Se espera que ya en el día de mañana ingrese en el Golfo de México. Esta alta presión permanece sobre la...
Becoming one of the most powerful storms ever recorded.
The extremely dangerous Category 5 hurricane clobbering Cuba tonight with its gusting winds and storm surge, but believe it or not, it could have been a lot worse.
One part of the Gulf Coast may not be spared. Florida's Panhandle preparing for the possibility of a direct hit later on in the week. Good evening, everybody. Ivan's eye expected to skirt the coast of western Cuba as that storm begins to move north.
But it's also expected to get even stronger as it heads towards the states. Chief Meteorologist Bill Kamal here with the latest. Bill?
It may get stronger in the short term, but it may weaken as it heads toward the Gulf Coast. We'll see exactly how that pans out. 21.3, 84.9. Winds are 160. It was down to 910 millibars. It's the 6th most intense or lowest pressure ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin, now 300 miles to the southwest of Key West. There has been more of a motion to the north-northwest now. There is a trough in the Gulf of Mexico, and it is picking it up a little bit more to the north-northwest rather than northwest. Hurricane conditions, though, are overspreading western Cuba. Tropical storm force winds almost to Havana at this point, and we'll keep you posted on that. This is the radar out of now Key West showing the cluster of very heavy showers and storms and heavy rains over western Cuba. And some of these bands graze the Keys right now, but everything is lifting out into the Gulf of Mexico. Let's look at the water vapor, and I'll show you what's going on here. There's the storm system. There it is, moving more to the northwest with time. Notice how there is a trough here in the Gulf of Mexico, and that trough is inducing a more of a northward turn right now, but this trough should lift out. There's that curl we talked about yesterday, and there's the trough. You can trace the elements here. This is inducing more of a northward turn. Now, what does that mean in the short term? It means that it will be further east than some of the models say it's going to be, and eventually there is going to be another collapse in the steering flow as this low pulls out. Then it's going to have to wait for the trough to come in from the west to kind of pick it up and move it to the northeast. So bottom line, it's going to move north and I think hook a sharp right at the last minute. And it does look as though there could be Florida's Panhandle, parts of northeast Gulf of Mexico, all the way back into Louisiana. All this area is the path of least resistance since high pressure is blocking it from moving west. So we're going to have to watch this anywhere from Louisiana to the Appalachee Bay area. And I would think the right side of this cone has just as good a chance as the left side. Here's another look at the satellite picture. And again, this is Ivan. This is the 160-mile-an-hour Cat 5 storm, and this now is tropical depression number 11. It is moving off to the west-northwest at 12, winds of 30. It is forecast to strengthen to a tropical storm, and we'll track that for you and have the latest coordinates and the cones on both of these systems. And just
see some rotation right in that part of this cloud mass. Very active tropical wave. It is forecast to become a tropical storm, and there are tropical storm warnings and watches for some of the islands, including the Virgin Islands. I'll have more details on that coming up a little bit later in the program. Here are the numbers on TD11, 16.0, 60.4. Winds only at 30 right now, but it hasn't been measured. That's estimated. West-northwest at 11, so moving kind of in that direction at the moment. And there you see the pressure estimated at 1010 millibars, 70 miles east-southeast of Guadalupe at this point. Now here is the future track, and watch it as the storm moves into the Caribbean by the Virgin Islands tomorrow, and that's why there are some tropical storm warnings for the U.S. Virgin Islands. And then Wednesday, Thursday, and notice it's not moving very quickly, heading toward the Bahamas. And yes, you're saying, oh no, it looks like it's coming this way. And then through Saturday here. Now, here's the deal. It just depends on what Ivan does. If Ivan does the right thing and ends up kind of up here to the north of it over the U.S., that's going to tend to want to pull the tropical depression or the tropical storm eventually to the north. If Ivan goes further west, that's more likely to pull it this way. So a lot of variabilities here.
Mucha actividad. Vamos a comenzar con un resumen de lo que tenemos en el trópico en el día de hoy. Aquí se puede observar el enorme y poderoso huracán Iván, y también ahora tenemos una nueva tormenta tropical por el nombre de Jeanne sobre las Antillas Menores. Mientras tanto, aquí tenemos el Golfo de México. Vamos a agregar la nubosidad para que puedan observar que abarca prácticamente el sector oriental del Golfo de México, la península floridana y Cuba. Durante la noche se movió sobre este sector, desplazando su furia sobre la costa occidental de Cuba, y aquí los estragos, esos vientos de 160 millas por hora rozaron el punto máximo occidental de Pinal del Río, provocó una marejada ciclónica de entre 15 y 20 pies y acumulaciones de lluvia de entre 8 y 12 pulgadas. Hay mucha nubosidad y precipitación a esta hora desde Cuba hacia el extremo sur de la Florida. Aquí se puede apreciar una banda de alimentación sobre La Habana, ingresando en el estrecho de la Florida. Y también tenemos aguaceros ahora hacia el oeste de Cayo Hueso, Naples, y la precipitación se extiende hasta Tampa. Conectamos con el radar Doppler 51 primero y preciso en vivo. Afortunadamente la gran mayoría de la lluvia se encuentra hacia el oeste de la península y ese será el patrón en el día de hoy, pero no podemos descartar completamente la posibilidad de una tormenta aislada sobre el área metropolitana. Mientras tanto, nos acaban de entrar ahora información directamente de los aviones caza huracanes y nos indican de que el ojo de circulación tiene ahora un diámetro de 20 millas. Ha perdido algo de su intensidad este huracán y eso es debido al ingreso de aire seco próximo a la superficie. Así que los datos de las 11 de la mañana son los siguientes. Ahora soplando con vientos de 140 millas por hora, todavía clasificada como categoría 4 en la escala Saffir-Simpson, y continúa su lento paso hacia el norte-noroeste a razón de 8 millas por hora. Nos alejamos de la costa de la Florida, volamos sobre Cuba, República Dominicana y Puerto Rico, y aquí tenemos sobre las Antillas Menores la nueva tormenta tropical por el nombre de Jeanne. En estos momentos promete cobrar fuerza e intensificarse en las próximas 48 horas. Tiene vientos de 40 millas por hora y se encuentra a 135 millas hacia el sureste de St. Croix, que es ese punto que se puede observar en pantalla.
A partir de ahí, days-old depression strengthening into September's newest tropical storm, Jeanne.
And Ivan just keeps on going. Powerful images as one of the strongest hurricanes on record pounds Cuba, doing plenty of damage. Good afternoon once again. The U.S. now bracing for Ivan.
And several Caribbean islands once again bracing for more tropical trouble. 7's Alita Loresca tracking two systems for us this noon. Alita?
Good afternoon, Christine. Good afternoon, everybody. That's right, off in the Gulf of Mexico, we are tracking Hurricane Ivan, now a Category 4 storm, has weakened since this morning, and now off in the Caribbean, we are looking at Tropical Storm Jeanne. Let's get the latest on the coordinates for Tropical Storm Jeanne. You can see 16.6 north, 63.1 west. The winds right now sustained at 40 miles per hour, but higher gusts already anticipated with this storm. Movement west-northwest at 12, and it's a little over 1,200 miles away from South Florida. As we take a look at Storm Scan, give you a better picture of where this storm is headed. It is expected to take that west-northwesterly direction, or that motion, over the next 24 to 36 hours, making its way toward Puerto Rico, eventually taking a northerly turn toward Hispaniola. But again, it's within that cone of error that we're seeing that slight shift toward the mid-Atlantic. It looks like Ivan could even take a player in the direction that Jeanne makes later on in the work week. Again, Ivan still showing a very strong.
Notice the cone of air gets rather large, anywhere from the open Atlantic down through the southern parts of Cuba and out a little further, again, South Florida in the cone of air. Again, this is 4 to 5 days out. There's a lot of time to go with this storm. We just want to let you know what's out there. It is forecast to develop into a minimal hurricane. The hopes are right now that the high pressure ridge to the north will break down enough to allow Jeanne to head out to sea early, if nothing else, move farther north and impact the Carolinas. That is what we're hoping for across South Florida. We've seen the turns with Ivan right
on the map too, so we'll continue to watch this as it maybe grazes Puerto Rico or passes just to the north, and then either to the north or right over Hispaniola, where there are tropical storm watches for the north coast around to the south coast. And again, Jeanne is intensifying as of the 5 p.m. advisory. Ivan, sorry, I went right by it. Winds are 140 in Ivan, and it is still moving to the north-northwest at 9. It is forecast to strengthen as it gets closer to the north-central Gulf Coast states, and now hurricane warnings have been posted from Grand Isle, Louisiana, over to Apalachicola, Florida, and that includes the the greater New Orleans area. So a hurricane warning now in effect for parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and portions of the Florida Panhandle. Here's the water vapor loop, and again, notice all these shades of brown in here. It's trying to entrain some dry air into the system, but it keeps fighting off that dry air too, and the pressure has actually come down 5 millibars today from when it started try to take in this dry air, so it's fighting off the obstacles. There's a big area of high pressure to its west, so it's going to block the westward movement, and there's high pressure out to our east, so it's going to go into the channel of least resistance, and right now the best probability for a strike is going to be either the Mississippi, Alabama, or extreme western Florida Panhandle coast, and this could be as bad or worse than Opal in 1995. And of course, this is taking roughly the same kind of track as Camille in 1969. It is forecast to become a stronger 4 but not a 5. So we'll see what happens. There's also some stronger westerly winds up in here, but that trough is also lifting out, so that may not do much to weaken the system before it gets closer to land. But destructive winds now near the core out to 100 miles and heavy rains. All of this surf will continue to pile up across all of the Gulf Coast, well ahead of the system. Tropical storm force winds now extending out 260 miles to the north. And as the hurricane makes its way to the north or northwest, the storm surge will be building up. And if it's a Category 4 storm, we're talking about devastating storm surge near and to the right of where the center crosses the coastline. So right now, the warning's out from Grand Isle over to Apalachicola. We don't know exactly where that's going to happen yet, but coastal flood watches have been issued now for parts of the southwest coast of Florida, and there could be some coastal flooding there as well. There's that big blocking high. There's also a high to our east, so it's going to take that path of least resistance. So if you have high pressure to our east, high pressure to the west, it goes up the channel between the two of them, and that's why we're now talking about southeast Louisiana to the Florida Panhandle. And with this system, we're talking about an enormous amount of rain just tomorrow into Thursday, 1 foot to 1.5 feet possible, and there are signs this will slow down over the southeastern states already that have been inundated with the rains from Francis, so some big troubles here. Here's 7 storm scan. I'll show you both cones. It is forecast to become a 145-mile-an-hour Category 4 storm tomorrow, make landfall somewhere between southeast Louisiana and the western Florida Panhandle. Best guess right now would be say southeast Mississippi, Mobile Bay, and right around Pensacola area, and then riding up and stalling over the Tennessee Valley. And here's the cone for Jeanne, making it a hurricane tomorrow into Thursday, tracking near Puerto Rico, just to the north of Hispaniola. But notice this cone. Now we can probably draw this way out in the Atlantic. It could turn to the north and east, or it could travel more to the west, but it's going to stall out here. We'll have tons of time to watch this. Here's another look at the satellite picture of both systems. There is Ivan in the Gulf of Mexico, and here is Jeanne now. And Jeanne looks like it's developing fairly rapidly, so we'll have a lot of time to watch this. But for you folks that have friends, family, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico, hurricane warnings in effect for them now. Back in just a few.
Well, Hurricane Ivan leaving its mark on Cuba, it may go down in history as the most powerful storm to hit the island.
Tonight, video of the damage left behind on the Cayman Islands is just coming in, and Team 7 covers
storms, but the center of circulation is under the north cluster here, very close to the northern Lesser Antilles, and it will be moving toward Puerto Rico and also toward Hispaniola. There are hurricane warnings out for the U.S. Virgin at 40 miles per hour sustained. Movement now north-northwest at 10. The pressure up 1 millibar, according to the Gulf of Mexico. Notice how the convection not totally wrapped around, but it's been pulsating. It goes through what's called those eye wall replacement cycles, and this will likely tighten up, and it's moving over sea surface temps here in the Gulf that are approaching 90 degrees. So there's the possibility, unless this dry air gets wrapped quite a ways around it, this could even